You didn't win in my yard.
Wait.
All of you.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good morning, everybody. Happy April. And may the April weather finally blow in and we can say go to hell to winter. I am so done with the snow and I'm so done with wind that blows at 35 miles an hour. I have a freaking kayak and I'm telling you, I'm getting a forearm workout trying to paddle in 35-mile-an-hour winds. It is insane right now. Let me know in the comments, guys, how many tournaments have been canceled that you've been fishing this year? How many days that you have off? Like, the memes are insane. I love some of them. Where it's just like Will Smith. You know what? I'm just going to talk about. I'll find some of them. It's just been absolutely insane, and I'm really hoping that we can actually get some good weather starting early April, so we can get out and enjoy the weather. Today is going to be an interesting episode. Okay, we talked about it for my peeps that have been here last week and the other times. We're going to do open mic. If you want to be on the show, just to talk a little bit, bounce some ideas off each other, something like that, message me on Facebook or Instagram at starting around 9:30. We're going to have our open mic. Maybe do a little bit earlier, depending on how things go. To start with, though, we are going to just kind of go through the April baits, things that I think will work right now in April, especially since like the fish are starting to spawn. And so, compared to last week's episode, which was purely bank fishing, this is going to kind of be a broad brush stroke of baits that I think work everywhere, whether you're bank fishing, kayak, from the boat. Okay, broad brush strokes for specific bodies of water in Virginia, Maryland, PA, around the DMV. There are, of course, niche baits where it's like, okay, Tom, you said you're going to throw this bait here, but when you got there, you're throwing this bait. Yeah, because like this place, I know it's like maybe a specific niche. Like this works better than all the other ones. So broad brush strokes, unless you guys have a specific question about a certain fishery, kind of let me know that. Good morning, Mike. How are you doing, sir? Bug, by the way, look, thank you. So Bug, by the way, love your video, guys. Please give him a follow on his YouTube channel. He's catching some really cool fish. He's have really cool content on his channel. He's growing. Please help him out down below. Hold on. I'm about to sneeze. Oh, that was weird. Sorry about that, guys. All right. By the way, the intro, thank you. There's something about the Daddy Chill meme, guys. I freaking love it. I can't handle emotionally how funny that meme is. So we're going to wait for a couple more people to get in the queue before we get started this morning. Get Chris Arbery's thing up. And we're going to change my background real quick. Actually, here we go. The memes, guys, are real. How many of you can relate to this right now? Honestly, how many of you can relate that every time you have a day off on the water, that's the day that things start getting weird? Good morning, sir. Audio is great today. Travis, thank you so much. Yeah, I've actually got my real studio now. This is all my equipment. I'm back in my confinements. It really stunk when we went to Berkeley Springs a couple weeks ago because we forgot our main audio equipment because I'm an idiot. So yeah, that was definitely an issue there, but yeah, we're doing good today. We're doing good today. So kind of like the itinerary for the day, guys, for all the new people that have just entered the stream. We're gonna be talking about April baits, and then we're having an open mic night or open mic morning. So if you want to be on the show, if you want to just kind of talk, chat, if you don't want to just text it out, but you actually want to get on the show, talk about your channel, talk about your guide service, your bait service, whatever, message me on Facebook or message me on Instagram. I can give you a link to the show and we can kind of have you on just real quick. Today's more about just kind of growing the community a little bit and talking shop. So I did have a poll. And so what I'm talking about is going to be based on the poll that I put up on the YouTube channel. And again, for the people that are watching on Facebook, please do me a favor. Go over to my YouTube channel, like and subscribe, Fishing the DMV. That would really, really, really help out the algorithms. But then you can take part in the community that we're growing. And actually, let me get that up right now. Dead air is not good. There we go. So, based on the poll that I put up on the old channel, and again, if you guys want to be a part of the community, just hit that like button and subscribe. 36% of you want to do best baits for April. Okay. I was shocked because I thought kayak fishing 101 and where to kayak fish around the DMV, 9%. I thought that was really low. Apparently, a lot of you guys don't kayak fish, which is perfectly fine. It was just more about me guessing about which one would kind of win. And then bank fishing 101, where to fish from shore DMV, 18%. I honestly thought that would be a little bit higher. I added question and answer just because I wanted an extra one. That's basically it. And then lake map breakdown. I was a little bit shocked that kayak fishing got such a low score. But best baits in April won. So that's the topic that we're going to be starting with today. Long live democracy. Again, if you guys want to be a part of the community, I try to post multiple times a week, different polls, different content you want. Just try to socialize with you guys. So please like and subscribe to Fishing the DMV. You can be a part of the community and help push where the content goes. That's why I do these polls, is to figure out what you guys want so I can get it to you. If I don't put it on the poll and it's something else you think I need to cover, please let me know in the comment section. If there's somebody that I should cover on the podcast, let me know. So then let's just get into it today. So, springtime fishing. Get that mic set there. Okay. How many of you, and let me know in the comment section below, are fishing from the bank, fishing from kayaks, and fishing from lakes? Or if there's a specific place that you'd like me to cover while I get into this. But without further ado, springtime fishing, April best baits. So April is a very weird time of year for us. If you compare it to North Carolina, if you compare it to Florida, there are different stages in the spawning ritual. For us, generally speaking, we are still either in that early pre-spawn or late pre-spawn stage. Down south of Virginia, because Virginia, for example, is like, you look over my shoulder, is this way, because I'm dyslexic as hell, is a massive state. So down south on Lake Kerr, they're much farther along than they are on the tidal Potomac, which is very interesting. And you need to keep that in mind with what I'm telling you right now. The information I give you is going to be broad unless specifically asked. And maybe I can kind of get down in the weeds a little bit. But as I continue to ramble, let's get into it. April, when the dogwoods and the flowers start blooming, that's a very good indication, no matter where you are in Virginia, Maryland, that the fish are starting to move up. They're staging. They're going to be in that pre-spawn, that full pre-spawn mode. Now, I said full pre-spawn, and there's a reason for that, because there are a couple of factors that dictate the spawn. And I like to break the pre-spawn up into, beginning, middle, and end pre-spawn. And the end phase is really when you're starting to see them around the beds before they lock down. And then from there, you can go, the spawn can be broken up into three pieces. The early, just dead, where a majority of the fish are spawning, and then the end, which transitions into the post-spawn. So for Virginia in this area, I like to think of the beginning phase of pre-spawn as when the water temperature breaks past its wintertime lows, just almost like the stock market when it hits the very bottom and it bounces up. When it hits that bounce and it's steady temperature increase, that's when I think the pre-spawn is initiated, when it is paired with daylight. Once you can see a noticeable difference in the daylight change, I think that's going to start triggering that pre-spawn activity. Then what's going to happen is they're going to start moving. They're going to start moving from main lake areas into the backs of coves. And you know what? I think, and this is all important, what I'm telling you now, to understand the baits and presentations that I have picked. So I'm going to go to Google Earth. And we're going to bring this up here because honestly, I think this is the best way to kind of show you guys what's going on. Housekeeping there. All right, let's get this up. Add to stream. Oh, whoa, that just shot up. So let's go to, unless you guys know of a lake. You know what? We're going to go to an oldie but a goodie. There it is. All right, this is Sleater's Lake in Round Hill, Virginia. It's a place that I grew up a lot. And we're just going to use this just as a sample. If there's a lake that you guys want me to do, but this is very, very, very important when it comes to kind of figuring out what's going on with the bite. There we go. And let me blow this up a little bit here. Perfect. All right, sweet. So, all right, so this is Sleater's Lake. So this is the dam right here. When you're in those winter patterns going into spring, they're going to be leaving those wintertime haunts to get to the backs of pockets, their main staging areas. So right back here, let's just say the back of this pocket here, let's just say this is the best spawning cove in the whole lake. Okay. And you have this main lake, this legit main lake bank. Okay. This is as main lake as it can get. And you have your primary point right here. So when you're thinking about the fish migration and what baits to throw, they're not, you have to understand one to understand the other one and what we're doing. When that water is super cold, you're relying usually on the higher vibration baits, the jerk bait, wintertime baits. And as you progress into that pre-spawn and those fish become more and more aggressive, you can throw baits that are a lot faster in cadence, cover more water. They're in more of a feed response, depending, of course, on the weather conditions. When you get closer to the spawn, though, those fish are going to become harder and harder to catch. And that's where soft baits are going to really come into handy. As they get shallower and harder to catch, you know, that again is where, and you'll see on my list, the oldies but goodies always come through. So in that early pre-spawn stage, as they start transitioning into the idea of, oh, we're actually thinking about going up to spawn, they're going to get into the main spawning. I think the true main spawning phase, which is they're moving out of those wintertime haunts and they're actually going to start going towards main lake points that are connected to the main spawning flats, or, and this is the key here, it's not always the point. It could be something that's next to the point. So example here is you would see this main lake point, and I think 90% of the anglers would go here and just start beating the heck out of this. Or they would go out and fish humps or drop-offs way out here. But this know-nothing bank right through here, if there's cover on it, those fish will use that. They will definitely use this main bank here as a staging area. And usually that gets overlooked for the juicier main lake point. But generally speaking, those fish will transition up to here and they're going to use the point and that main lake bank first. As the water starts warming up and it gets closer to a consistent 50 to 55 degrees, they're going to transition from the main lake areas, these main lake points, and they're going to bounce back to these secondary points. And a secondary point is just a point that's deeper in the creek or cove or what have you. Does that make sense? Let me see. Oh, got a question. 20-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah, I know. Like the wind was really terrible yesterday. Yeah, the wind was just awful. And again, weather has a lot to do with it too. And then after the water does hit that magic number that we all know, between 50, 60 degrees, somewhere around there, and then I think the moon does play a big effect on it, those fish back up into the very end of the coves. Now, the one consistent thing about all this is the depth is getting shallower and shallower. Those fish are pushing shallower. For you shore guys, this is really awesome that they're able to, this is really, really good for you the closer you get to the spawn, because the easier these fish are going to be able to catch. And this kind of gets into our bait presentations. So I know that's a really quick version of what the pre-spawn is, because you're going from basically deeper water to shallower water. And that's really going to dictate our bait choices. Now, number one, the first one I'm going to start with. So the first bait I'm going to start with here is or I guess it'll be not the number one choice, but we'll go top 5, sort of speak. Lipless bait. Um, a small lipless bait, especially on grass fisheries, is a fantastic lure to cover water and find them. You can bomb cast this thing. I generally like to go with a little bit smaller size if I'm not stroking it. So if I'm actually taking this thing and yo-yoing it back and forth, I would use a little bit heavier one. But this is where we're just completely just bomb casting it out and just reeling it back in. If the water has grass in it, this is 100% my number one choice. That I'm going to go with this first to try to cover water and find them. Find them, by the way. And you did a video on that between lipless and chatterbait for finding fish. And that's a really good video if you want to see that. My next bait, of course, is a lipless. Wow, brain fart. Is a square bill crankbait. I usually like to go with a hotter color. Water in the wintertime, and that wintertime is usually clear. But as you get closer to spring, and as you know, the wind is up there, there's more chop on the water. There's a lot of rain. That water gets cloudy. And going with a black and yellow color pattern on your baits, especially for your hard baits, dude, it cannot be beat. This is a Spro Little John. The other one I really like is a Bandit. Bandit has a very good color pattern as well. But I'm going to start with one of those two baits, really, just to cover water and try to find out where they're at, where they're specifically holding. Now, if the water's a little bit dirtier, or I'm pushed up a little bit shallower, so now we're more on our secondary points, I'm going to start throwing a spinnerbait. Now, the key with the spinnerbait, you need a little bit of chop on the water, and you need to understand the depth in which you're using it. So if I am fishing 4 feet or less, 5 feet or less on the back of a flat, I can go with a 1/4 ounce spinnerbait. If I'm fishing 10, 15 feet, or let's say 8 and down, it's going to be a lot harder with this 1/4 ounce spinnerbait to be using. And so you're going to have to go to a 1/2 ounce, or you're going to switch up to something else. A spinnerbait with these blades, the spinnerbait wants to lift off the bottom. It wants to come off the bottom. And a lot of times what gives this bait, what makes it so effective, is being able to bump bottom. And everyone, you all know this. You have to maintain bottom contact. So when you're throwing your spinnerbait, what really tells me whether I'm going to throw the spinnerbait or not is depth. And again, yes, you can throw a spinnerbait in more than 10 feet of water. There's no problem there. But generally, broad brush strokes, you're going to fish that thing in shallower water. So once those fish start pushing up to water that's accessible to the spinnerbait, depending on the cover in the lake, I'm gonna have one of those tied on. And it was really interesting. I heard a really good conversation, the difference between the spinnerbait and the chatterbait. And honestly, they're very interchangeable. It's just the flash and the vibration. That's the biggest thing. This one a chatterbait does not have the same flash as a spinnerbait does. The chatterbait has a different vibration profile than a spinnerbait. Let's see. Matthew Carlett, how do you decide between a willow or Colorado blades for these early spring days? That's a really, really good question. I can pull that up here. 2 things: water temperature and water clarity. The cleaner the water, the more light penetration that you're going to have. And that's where flash becomes a big deal versus just vibration. The dirtier the water, the less light visibility. And so instead of that, you're going to go with vibration and color. A lot of Colorado or Indiana blades, you can get them colored. Jason Christie has won a lot of money on that. And what he's going for is not necessarily the flash, but getting that deeper thud vibration that a big Colorado or Indiana blade will give you. The other thing is water temperature. When the water temperature is colder, those fish really use their lateral lines more, especially largemouth bass. They use their lateral lines more to feel out the bait. And that deeper thud of the Colorado blade really helps those fish to hone in and get it. I heard that white blades are also extremely effective when the water's dirty, coloring the blades out. is extremely effective when the bait's when that's out there. So just kind of some food for thought there with that. I hope that helps. And again, this is kind of just I'm trying to give I want to give generic stuff because I really when I grew up and you read a Bassmaster, they were so specific. And then you would go to the lake and you do that. You're like, oh, it doesn't work. It's like, oh, that's because they were talking about Gunnersville or Lake Fork where you catch 10 pounders and it doesn't translate to a pond in Purcellville, Virginia. And so everything I say right now is kind of like always, it depends. You know, if I go to Smith Mountain Lake, yeah, there's probably there's specific stuff there that works better. But I'm trying to give you guys an idea of like, generally speaking, if you use these, you'll have success. And I got Shane Flint in the house. I can see him in the queue. So I'm going to get through my list, guys, and then I'm going to check my feed to see who else wants to come on the show, and then we're going to switch to just open mic. But I hope that helps with the old spinnerbait. And then when we get Shane on the show, he's going to be our first guest. He's going to also go through, you know, his channel and also his top baits for April, and then we're going to answer as many questions as possible. Now, so I hope that helped with the spinnerbait and the chatterbait. Now, my next bait. Hold on, let me grab it. I have so much tackle by my feet, guys. It's insane. Where is it? Sorry about that. So the next bait that's on my list, because I am a swim bait, a junkie. It's 2 parts, and I'm actually just rigging it up right now as we go. There we go. You're going to go with that 3.3 to 4-inch Kitech, or name your spinnerbait, name your swim bait kite that you like, and you're going to be throwing that on a super light jig head. Again, you got to make sure it's light when you're getting up into that shallower water, a 1/8 ounce or lighter when you're under 4 feet, and then 3/8 when it's a little bit heavier. Now, there's a reason I really like to throw a swim bait besides the profile is how quickly, because of this tack, guys, this is a key tip and trick here. T-tip and key trick. You can take this and turn this into an underspin. You can buy out of any tackle shop these thread-in blades with a screw lock. And this was a cool tip when I fished the college national championship, the first one that a lot of guys would use. And what is so cool about this is I never have to put down the rod, and I can change my bait real quick to know what I need to go to. So what I can easily do is I can take that bait like that, and I can just screw that thing into the head of the bait. And then all of a sudden, I have flash attached to it. Just like that. Super duper easy. Now, that's what's so cool about this is it makes this one bait a Swiss Army knife. I can make one bait into 2 different styles. I can throw this without the blade, screw a blade on real quick, keep fishing it, and see if there's a difference. And from there, I can change my plan of attack. If all of a sudden I start getting smoked on a swim bait with flash, hey, maybe I need to start throwing a spinnerbait. Maybe I need to start throwing something more with flash. What are they called, Boogie? As I completely destroy the packaging, they are called right there. They're called Pro Point Fishing Lure underspin attachments. Google just underspin attachments, and I will link in the video description when I upload this next week. I will link all the tackle that I'm using. But again, having that ability to attach a blade real quick, what's so cool about that is instead of trying to tie on a spinnerbait, you can just pop a blade on real quick and try that and let the fish tell you what's going on. Oh, hey, they want more flash. Make that adjustment. Good question. When do you pick up that swim bait over something like the trash fish? Are you trying to just get bit, or are you trying to just stick an absolute giant? So the trash fish, if you can get these right now, because they're like sold out everywhere. The trash fish, believe it or not, has a bigger profile, but they're pretty much the same size bait. The difference is the thickness. This is a lot thicker bait, and this is made to be bottom bumped. And what I mean by that, it's kind of like the Huddleston. With all these appendages and this boot here, it does not take very much to get this thing. You see how limp it is? It doesn't take much that if it hits something, the whole thing quivers. So the point of this thing is to crawl it on the bottom. When that water is cold or I'm after a little bit bigger fish, I'm going to use something like this. Now, if you saw my last fishing video, little ones will still chew this thing. Very easy, no problem. But I'm specifically targeting when I get this on there is trying to get that bigger bite. This one here, I can bump bottom on, or I can just slowly reel it back to the boat because it's maintaining. It is mimicking a bait fish or a shad. And so that's really the difference here is this one is going to be thrown more like the dark sleeper, crashing it into everything, bumping it on bottom. This one I can throw more like a shad variation bait. That's a really good question. And then, of course, you guys know I'm a huge fan of these things, which are glide baits. This is the smaller version of the River to Sea in a bass color. Again, go with a smaller one if you don't have confidence. But I really think a 168 is probably the juice type of deal where you're going to get bit on it and you're going to have a really, really good shot of landing a fish of a lifetime. And if you guys want to get into tackle with that, let me know. But again, these things are absolutely just monstrous. Oh, man, he just gave it away. Let me ask a couple of questions here while I get down. So, guys, what do you think of my picks so far? We're getting down the line. And we're going to answer a few questions before we finish out the list. Yeah, but the wind was absolutely terrible yesterday. It was absolutely terrible. And again, guys, if you want to be on the show, please reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, and I can send you a link. Starting at 9 o'clock, we're going to have guests start coming in the show. So again, just let me know. Let me flip through that. I got some questions here on my phone too I want to get through. What type of rod are you throwing that on? All right, good question. All right, so for my swim baits, I generally think you need to be throwing that on a little bit heavier tackle just because of the what if. And I'm talking about the glide bait and the trash fish. You want to be throwing that on heavier tackle. You are going to have some absolute toads get stuck every now and then when you're fishing those baits, and you don't want to be undermanned. It's better to be overmanned when you're throwing those bigger swim baits because, again, it's a law of averages. You're not going to get bit very often, but when you do get bit, it's going to be that absolute game changer of a fish. So just understand that and be aware. I highly suggest 18-pound test is absolutely the bare minimum. That's as low as possible that you go. Besides that, don't go any lower. Let's see. You got another question there. When you pick up the trash fish, I got that one done. Only here for the big girls. Yeah, the trash fish, Matthew, the trash fish is fantastic. And yeah, Matthew, Boogie, if you guys want to be on the show, just message me and I can send you the link. White and chartreuse willow blades are sick for smallmouth, even in clear water. White and chartreuse blades, and I even forgot to show you this one, guys. This is my Potomac and Florida special here. It is a black, and you can tell that the color has actually been knocked off the blades. When that water gets that tint to it, black blades, black skirt is absolutely lethal, and it's hard to find these. There are some companies that make this, but it's really hard to find them. So you have to make them yourself. It's a silhouette that it creates. You know, that June bug color creates a silhouette, a really good silhouette in dirty off-stained water. That's why orange and red work so well in early spring, is because of the silhouette that's cast in the water. So again, don't just think with your blades they have to be like gold or silver. Painting them sometimes can be insanely effective. And again, it depends on your body of water, how those fish will respond to those colors. So anyway, we'll get to the next things on the list. All right, two more baits until we get into the late pre-spawn, right into the spawn. Okay, so these are the last two baits that I'm going to be throwing as we're getting closer and closer to the spawn. So I'm going to say late pre-spawnish area. These are the two baits, and then we'll get into my staging baits. Okay, so next one on my list is a jig. Now, there's something specific about it. As you can tell, I went fishing the other day. This is exactly what I use. You're going to want a jig that is flipping in nature, but still has the ability to swim. I am big on having baits that are like a Swiss Army knife, a multi-tool, if you will, that you can use multiple different ways. So being able to take and put a blade on a swim bait, I can take one bait and make it into two different ones. A jig is the same way. If you get the right head and style, you can swim it like a swim bait or a chatterbait or a spinnerbait, but then you can also pitch and flip it. So depending on the brand that you like, I want you to go with an R-key style head, just like that. It's not too pointed that it's going to get jammed, but it's not too round that it won't swim well. Okay. Green pumpkin. And then you can either match it with a regular green pumpkin trailer or black and blue. Generally speaking, I like a green skirt with a blue trailer, or you can make it one solid piece. Now, the key is if I'm just purely swimming this, what I would do is I would have a trailer on the back that I would use for kicking, a swim bait, rage crawl, something like that. But with this one right here, I will still get bit. I mean, honestly, this one right here, I used last week. I flipped it into a tree, and then as I was reeling it out of the tree, I got bit, yanked him out. It was a 2.5 pounder. He didn't want it dropped. And then I started casting it, and I caught 2 more casting, and I caught 1 flipping again into a tree. So again, I really feel like when people throw jigs, they don't understand that like this is a swim bait too. It's a swim jig too. And what you end up doing is you go from dock to dock or bush to bush, and you forget about this open water in between that you can swim that bait through there. So having a jig that can do both is very, very important. The jig type I think this is a dirty jigs pitching jig, but you don't even need to use dirty jigs. Use what you're comfortable with. But the biggest thing is the head. You don't want a head that's super pointy like a swim jig head, but you don't want a flipping head that you want that perfect in between, if that makes sense. So hopefully that helps. Now, the last bait before we get into the niche, the really I call staging baits, is a jerk bait. This one's right off my BFS setup. I like the smaller ones. Now, hear me out. I know I'm going to get killed in the comment section. Tom, why not the fluke? Why not the fluke? Tom, why not the fluke? We all love the fluke. I love the fluke. Hookup percentage. Those are my words for you. Hookup percentage. If I use a fluke, and because I pond fish too, guys, I remember that. When you jerk that rod on a fluke, those fish will sometimes mouth it. And when you go back to jerk and you didn't realize you had one, you pull that thing right out of their mouth. Unless you know that they're there, whether it's line detection, you feel them, what have you, you're going to miss a lot of fish on that fluke. I like to fish the fluke, but first, I'm going to try with this. If I can get away with throwing something with treble hooks, and this is my personal opinion, okay, you can do what you want to do, but you have a higher chance of hooking a fish with treble hooks than you do with a single hook. Granted, I'm not talking about landing percentage. I'm just saying hooking. If I'm searching, I need to have a bite. I need to see a fish. So I usually like to go with treble hooks first on my search lures, because at least if I snag one, I can get a vibe to like, okay, that's where he was setting up. That's what he was doing. He's a little white. I get clues, and then I can make adjustments to a single hook. So throw smaller jerk baits. And this is the key trick. Go with braid to a heavy leader. So if you're using a monofilament leader of above 10-pound test, it'll actually get the jerkbait to rise up in the water column, so you can fish it a little bit shallower, or just an old school Rapala, something that's a little bit smaller. That right there is going to get you bit really quickly, especially on those fish that are about to lock down on beds, and it'll start giving you a tell. Then if you're getting into later April or you're fishing a super weedy, grassy lake, 100% go to a fluke. No problem there. But yeah, those are my last 2 big search baits as they get back into the pockets, into the staging area. And then, this is no shocker about the next 2 baits on the list. Plastics, right? I mean, what'd you expect? No big shock here. The number 1 bait that I think for everyone, whether you're a kid or you're, a tournament angler, Yamamoto, green pumpkin, watermelon, like those 2 colors are absolutely the best. Wacky rigging it and Nico rigging it are basically the same thing. If you guys don't know what Nico is, let me know, and I can kind of go over that. Now, the key with this is how I'm doing on time. Cool. I got 15 minutes. So the key with this, if you're going to rig it wacky style, and this is one of like 6 billion hooks that I have, is just a Gamakatsu weedless with a nice 3-prong. It's a nice wide gap. It's one type of hook that you can use. Okay, sweet. My guy's talking to Shane real quick. Sorry about that, guys. But anyway, so the key is find your hook. You want a 1/0 to a 2/0 hook. If I can actually break this open. There we go. And what you're going to do, and I know I have a lot of kids watching, so for my pro anglers that are watching, bear with me. I know you all know this, but you're going to hook it right in the egg sac, or what's also called as the collar area of the bait. Now, here's the key. And I really saw this after watching a lot of other videos. You don't need to get the rubber tool. It is nice, but if you're on a budget, you don't need it. All the videos nowadays are talking, and you know what? Let me just show my younger anglers who don't actually understand what I'm talking about. So you take a tool like this, or VMC makes pliers too. You put a little piece of rubber on it, and then you thread the piece of rubber onto the bait. And what that does is it helps latch it in there so the worm lasts longer. Again, if you're on a budget and you have to pick between getting Yamamoto's, which are a little bit more expensive, and buying a threading tool, just get the Yamamoto's and save up for it. But you do not actually need it to make this bait work. Now, how to throw that bait. Everyone has their own setup. I particularly like to use a Phoenix medium rod. It's a 7-foot. I use braid to a leader. Very important there. I use high vis line when I'm specifically doing this technique, either yellow, and sometimes you can get pink because you need the line detection. And then you're going to go with a 8 to 10 foot leader that you can reel up onto the pole. And you're going to go with 10-pound fluorocarbon. I know you can go 8. However, go with 10 because you will stick some monsters with this thing. And so you might just want to go with that little bit heavier line just to kind of protect yourself there. And that right there is like one of the best techniques. Now, this is my number one that I really like to do this time of year. And this is that, which is a plain old shaky head. But here's the key. I like to throw this like I would throw a jig. Because like I said earlier, again, it depends. The water clarity is usually a little bit, the visibility is lacking, let's just say, in a lot of our fisheries. If you were fishing Lake Hartwell, Lake Murray, where you still have, 1,000 feet of visibility, I would throw this on spinning tackle. But if you're fishing the tidal Potomac, let's say, or, Smith Mountain Lake with some chop, I would throw this on a 3/8 ounce head. I'm going to throw it on a medium heavy bait caster with 12-pound fluorocarbon. And then what I can do is I can pitch and flip this thing just like I would do a regular jig. Now, that's just kind of my setup because I can get away, again, with a little bit beefier hook, and I can jack them a little bit harder, especially if that water's a little bit colder and those fish's mouths are harder. Now, I don't know if you remember that from our last stream, guys, but when the water's warmer, the fish's mouth actually gets softer, and so you have ability to tear a bait out. On the flip side, when it's, -6 degrees, the mouth of the fish gets a lot harder. And so you always got to factor that into the hook type you use, the rod, everything. What did Marty say? Use 2 O-rings. Yamamoto's are too expensive. Rip easy with rigging wacky. I 100% agree with you. Yeah, 100% agree. They're insanely expensive. And I got some extra. I'm going to show you some extra baits here before we kind of switch to our guest. I don't always actually use the Yamamoto, believe it or not. I go a couple different avenues, and that is with trick worms. And the reason being is a lot of the ponds and stuff in Northern Virginia and Maryland are stupid pressured. A Yamamoto stick bait is fantastic for most places, except when you're dealing with super, super pressured fish, because again, that's what they see. Everyone's throwing that stick worm. Rightfully so, it's a good bait. But going down to a 4-inch or a 7-inch trick worm, it's just going to get you bit way, way more. Lake Frederick, the biggest bass I ever caught was on a 4-inch green pumpkin trick worm. And again, if you guys remember last week's live stream where we talked about BFS gear, bank fishing, I was throwing that on 5-pound Sunline fluorocarbon leader when I caught that big one at Lake Frederick, is about 2 years ago. And I had to keep going down in line size until I could get bit. And so when you're doing that, all I'm doing here is I'm downsizing my wacky rig. I'm downsizing my shaky head. So again, if the fish are highly pressured, if the pond you're in are highly pressured, just drop everything down. Why no salt, Marty? Yeah. And so green pumpkin, and then let me get you this other color that I really like. Last two colors. Yeah, if I can open the damn box. And why zoom? I see. Why zoom? It's cheap. Like I have a bunch of others that I use, but honestly, guys, like I'm not sponsored by anybody when I do this. I really do appreciate Tactical Bassins viewing things. I want to fish it first and then tell you if it's good or if it sucks. That way I'm giving you good content. So what I buy and I use is what I'm showing you. And so like this green pumpkin or just this June bug color and this straight black. And I'm going to get yelled at by all my Potomac guys. Straight black. Look at the difference there. I don't even know you can see because I wear a damn black shirt. Let me put my hand right there. A straight black trick worm or a June bug trick worm, depending if you want that flake, it's that silhouette that it casts. And going with a straight black worm, dude, you'd be insane how well that works. Even in like slightly stained water, honestly. Like my favorite color to fish on the Shenandoah and Upper Potomac for smallmouth is usually June bug. And it's weird. Like I ran out of my my regular green pumpkin Ned rigs. And so I was like, oh shit, well, I'm just going to go to June bug then. And I outfished it. And so it's something about that color and that silhouette that it just freaking works. So yeah, in general, guys, that's kind of my viewpoint. And again, it goes back to what stage of the pre-spawn you're in my opinion. And that makes you understand what's going on. Fish are deeper when it's closer to wintertime. So it's harder to use a spinnerbait. You're not using a wacky rig. As the fish get shallower, you're adjusting your baits. What we're going to do right now is we're going to take a, I guess, 2-second break. I'm going to try to bring Shane on. And again, if you guys have any questions, kind of let me know. And we'll try to get them answered. Again, if you'd like to be on the show, please message me at Facebook or Instagram so I can kind of get you on here. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to take a short, like super short break, and we're going to bring on Shane. And hopefully I'm saying his name right. Because Lord knows, Marty knows how badly I suck with names.
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Hello, how are you doing, my good sir?
Good. How are you today? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem at all. I mean, thank you for reaching out. I really appreciate it. I always want to try to get as many guests on the show and just get as much knowledge out there as humanly possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
The floor is yours, sir.
Well, hey, I first off, I would tell you, just watching what I got a chance to look at, all the early morning or the early spring baits, man, you're spot on a lot of that.
Well, thank you.
There's so many things that you can fish with, right? There's so many different things. Everybody has their personal preference. Personally, I'm a spinnerbait guy this time of year. I put out a few videos here lately that show how to catch bass on a spinnerbait, and honestly, in the last 30 days, I probably caught well over 100 bass on a spinnerbait. And that's in about 8 or 9 fishing trips. And probably 10 of those bass were 5 pounds or better. So, I mean, it's a good bait. It's just, you got to get out there and fish it and kind of figure out how to fish it deep. Because you can slow roll it. That's kind of my trick. But I will tell you also some other baits, the jerk bait, the square bill, all that works. I mean, the real trick in this time of year is bass want to eat. Right. It's that time of year. So they're getting ready for the spawn. So you can be successful on many things. So,
and that's a very good point. Like, and guys, this is where fishing by yourself sucks. Cause you guys asked me like which bait to throw. It's like, well, I only got one. I got 2 arms. That's it. And so if you have a buddy in the boat, a big mistake I see, especially from, team fishing in high school and college, fish different baits. If you're fishing a spinnerbait, have your friend fish a chatterbait or a swim bait, because again, if for some reason one might just be working and then you can fine tune from there. But I think it's a big mistake when both people are throwing the exact same thing, because you're either going to be really on them or you're going to be way off.
Yeah, I totally agree. And yesterday I was out in the morning, and the water was slick glass before we had this little front move through, and I switched from a spinnerbait to a chatterbait and just slayed them on a chatterbait. You've got to switch it up. I mean, that's part of the secret sauce of being a good bass fisherman, is know when to switch that bait up. And like you said, if you have two people in the boat, have two different baits thrown out there. I mean, and if one's doing better than the other, hey, both of you can put the bait on. So it's great to have two rods and reels going at the same time. So
no, 100%. Why don't you let everybody know who you are, and then we can kind of get into, if you'd like to, your top baits for this time of year.
Yeah, sure. Shane Flynn. I got a channel here on YouTube, Shane Flynn Outdoors. I'm in the north central part of Virginia. I'm fishing just in the Fredericksburg area. I'm a transplant from Oklahoma. I retired out of the military after 27 years and ended up settling here in Stafford, Virginia, just north of Fredericksburg. And I made some decisions. I was going to, buy me a nice $70,000 bass boat when I retired and go start hitting the fishing tournaments again, because I did fish a lot of tournaments when I was younger. But I looked around and I was like, look at all these great electric only reservoirs. So I have been really, I decided, instead of spending $70,000, I spent $10,000-$12,000 and built me an all electric bass boat.
Oh, God, it's so cool.
And I've got dual electric, motors on my boat, 36 volt in the front, 24 in the back, got all the electronics that I need from, everything. And I am just enjoying it, and I like to share my experience. That's why I have my channel out. So I am typically just focused on these electric only lakes. I haven't started into the tournament cycle yet. I probably will next year to kind of get that competitive edge back. But man, I just love getting out there and catching fish, and that's what I put out on my channel. You can see I do probably one or two how-tos or something like that a month on my channel, but most of it you see me slinging that bait and catching fish and sharing how I get out there and do it, from the time of year, the depths, etc., and how I'm catching them. And something I think is key, and I try to relay this, is I want you to catch fish. I want to share how I'm catching fish and all that, but I want you to understand why you're catching fish, right? It's
100%.
One thing to get out there and sling a spinnerbait, if you will, and you catch a 5 or 6 pounder and it's your PB, but why did you catch that fish? Why did you catch it at that depth? And what can I do next year or later on to continue that success? So that's part of what I do with my channel, is just share that experience with getting out there and fishing. And another thing that I also like to do is collaborate with other folks in YouTube. And I have found that the YouTube fishing family is pretty tight. There's a lot of folks out there. I've been doing a series over the wintertime called Fish Chatter, where I just bring on other YouTube fishermen. We just BS a little bit about fishing and tell us a bit how you got started, and tell a fishing story or two. So that's a little bit about me and the channel I have there. Again, thank you very much for having me on. I caught this channel from Marty when he's on a few days, and I've got to increase Marty's paycheck for sharing my name on his channel a little bit. So again, thanks.
No problem at all. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I saw that there was a need. There was no specific channel that's dedicated, not just as a individual brand, but just the channel. Like, In Fisherman used to do really cool highlights around the country, and that's really why I want to do this and the podcast, and also just basically have a weekly radio show where we can just talk about this and bring the community together, because we are so also divided too between musky guys or bass fishermen or trout guys. And it's like, we all care about fish. We all want our reservoirs to do well. Let's come together and let's enjoy these natural resources that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for me, fortunately, I got to live all across the United States, every 2 or 3 years moving with the military. So I've caught giant halibut in Alaska and king salmon to big muskie in Minnesota. And I'll tell you what I really like to catch is walleye. So I got and you get spoiled. I got spoiled to learn how to catch all those fish. And I can see how people get, I'm a musky fisherman, I'm a this fisherman, I'm that fisherman. But in all, we all like to get out there and wet the line and
Yes, yes.
and pull them in. So I mean, that's how we all bring it back together for sure. So
now I really want to kind of get into your boat, but I guess the people, I know what the people want, so we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, like the floor is yours. Do you have what would you throw this time of year?
well, I can tell you right now, the first thing I'm going to throw is this guy right here, spinnerbait.
nice.
And I start fishing the spinnerbait when the water gets about 45 degrees.
45. Okay.
Yeah, 45 degrees. I'm going to start throwing the spinnerbait. And I mean, this is a Colorado willow blade combo, but I will start off with a giant, I don't have it here handy, but a giant double Colorado blade.
Oof.
And I slow roll that thing down to 8-9 feet,
Oh, wow.
depending on the water clarity. So the primary fish, let me just say the lakes that I fish close to my house is Able, Hunting Run, Nye, and Mooney. And all those lakes you can see down 4 to 7 feet in clarity.
Wow.
They're real clear. So if I can get that spinnerbait down to 7 or 8 feet, I'm really targeting bass in that 10 to 12 feet because, they're looking up. When they see that vibration, that flash, they'll come up and grab it. So about 45 degrees, I start with the spinnerbait, and I fish that pretty heavy right up until they're starting to hit the beds. When they hit the beds, you're well aware, most of you are all aware, you can throw that spinnerbait all day long. You're just going to watch it zip on by, right? So you got to get more targeted. So I'd say number one is the spinnerbait for me. But what I would say number two for me is a jerkbait. And I like to use a suspending jerkbait. And I keep 2 different suspending jerkbaits handy in my tackle box in multiple colors, but 2 to 4 foot suspender. And then what I really had success on this spring was one that's 6 to 9 feet. And I think the one I was using was a Strike King KVD model.
Okay.
And I'm a big guy from the aspect of match the hatch.
Yes.
So I don't try to get wild on the colors. I'm going to go with a standard, minnow color, green back, moss back, white, or black back with a silver side. Trying to understand, a little bit of the fords that are in the lakes, but did real well early. If the water was glass, I'm going to throw that jerkbait. And I think I got a couple bass over the 5 pound mark on a jerkbait earlier this spring, targeting them down in that 12 to 14 foot of water. Again, you're going to draw them up a little bit when they're hungry and they're biting. They may be down a little bit deeper, but if they see that jerkbait, tantalizing up above them, they'll reach up and grab it most of the time. So yes, yeah, that works as well right there.
And I know they're clung together, guys. Bear with me, but whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So, and another key factor, guys, to think about is the fish positioning. If you guys saw my hidden gem on Winchester, I talked about like if you see fish that are nose down or mud on the belly, they're not really going to be targeting baits that are 10 feet above their head. And a jerk bait is specifically made for fish that are looking up to feed. So versus like a jig or even like a swim bait, like when I'm throwing the trash fish or you're throwing a spinner bait, those fish aren't feeding up. They're usually tucked down to the bottom. So this just to give you an idea of why you would throw it. Like what is the fish behavior at that moment? One more thing on the spinner bait. So if you're throwing that thing in 8 to 10 feet, I mean, are you doing that with like a 1/4 ounce, 1/8 ounce? Like how heavy is that spinner bait?
I'm throwing a 1/2 ounce. I use a 1/2 ounce and I just slow roll that thing as much as I can. Hold on just a second. My wife is pulling out of my garage.
No, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, like that's a very, very big thing. Is understanding why you're throwing it and what the fish's behavior is to that. So example is with that Huddleston, which again, if you want a good Huddleston video, just go to Tactical Bassing. I can't do it as well as they can. But you're fishing a bait that's bumping along the bottom because those fish are pinned to the bottom. They're not feeding up, generally speaking, in that circumstance. If those fish are pegged to the bottom or they're feeding down, you need to understand that you can't throw a jerkbait, you can't throw a swim bait, something of that ilk, because it's going to blow right past their heads. Their strike window is small and their feeding behavior is completely different. That's why an example of this is blueback lakes, which is so crazy, which is the antithesis of, a spinnerbait bite, generally speaking, because those fish are feeding up like sharks are looking for those tuna that are just flying by, and you have to mimic that. Yeah. So, but just some generic fish behavior stuff. But anyway, continue, sir.
Yeah. So 1/2 ounce is what I try to throw. I don't really throw a giant, you can get a heavier spinnerbait, but once you figure out that the rate of return that you need to get that bait down, and find that rhythm and just a little bit of pump action, I get it down there, and I've got live scope, so I can see my bait down there. And a lot of people like, got live scope, you're cheating. I use live scope more for figuring out where my bait is, versus just looking for fish. And actually, I don't catch many fish by finding them on live scope anyway. But it's good to see that, I can get that bait down there and keep it down at that 6, 7, 8 feet mark. And you mentioned this earlier, your spinnerbait wants to rise, right? The faster you swim it. But if you can get it to, get that, when I say slow roll, just keeping those blades thumping is what I think is very effective. And especially early spring when you're getting down there deep, and it works. It really works.
Trailer hook or trailer bait or just straight? I know that's a fun topic.
Yeah, I do. Here it is. I typically will throw, my trailer is a white curly tail grub. I like Mr. Twister brand. That's my preference. I will switch it up to chartreuse from time to time, depending, what the water conditions are. But typically that's it. I never throw a trailer hook. And every bass I catch, the only thing that you see out of the bass's mouth is this part, the arm. They inhale the spinnerbait when they're wanting it. So when I was younger, I threw a trailer hook, and what I found is I'd hook. The bass would get the primary hook, but then the hook would be on their head somewhere, secondary hook. But if a bass is going to jump on that spinnerbait, you're going to hook them. And I rarely lose a bass on a spinnerbait hook. And if I do, it's usually my fault. So, but when they're aggressive. So, that's my setup with the curly tail grub for a trailer. It's just a standard I've used for years and years, and it's worked for me.
Let's see. What do you want? Travis via text message. Tom, when do you? Okay, yeah. So Travis says, like, on one of my videos, I talked about trailer hooks on a spinnerbait. So the key with that though was, if you've never been there before and you're not sure what's nipping at your bait, if you know your fishery, that's completely different. And this is the difference between like a pro guy and maybe if you've been to your lake 1,000 times. Throwing a trailer hook on to make sure whether that's a bass or is it a perch that's hitting it or something like that is very important just for your decision making. Because again, if they're nipping the bait in a tournament, I don't want that bait. I have to make an adjustment. I do not want them to nip it. But if I'm in practice, I might slide one on there just to double check to see, like, am I actually around bass, or is this? I put a trailer hook on once because I kept getting bit, and I jacked a 2-pound crappie on a spinnerbait one time because, like, oh, that's the problem, and I made an adjustment. But that's where a trailer hook you want those in your boat just in case. But yes, you're correct, Travis. You don't want to throw them because you also lose the weedlessness of the bait. But that's a good question via text. But so what? Besides the spinnerbait, as the water warms up and they start pushing, what adjustments do you like to make?
So once they start pushing, there's a few baits that I kind of look at, right? And one of them you talked about as well is swim bait. You can't go wrong with swim bait. And right before they go on the beds, because they're still searching around. And I will throw that swim bait quite a bit. I prefer Kitech swim baits. But I'll throw a swim bait a little bit. And the one thing that you mentioned, and it's a good bed bait, but it's also a good bait for when they kind of get in that 3 to 4 foot area before they start making nest. Is this guy right here, the old wacky worm? It works really good. You can't go wrong with it. It's a really good bait to use. The other thing that really can come on, depending on watercolor again, and what the temperature of the water is. And there's not much difference in this, but the chatterbait works as well. I sometimes just jump on a chatterbait, depending, what they're at. Those are kind of my spinnerbait, chatterbait. The I really use.
Oh boy, we're losing.
And maybe area to the this year.
Shane, when you have a chance, if you could refresh your browser, we're losing you. But no, like, guys, yeah, we just completely lost you. Oh no, we lost Shane. But yeah, guys, please let me know in the comment section. Give Shane some questions too. Do you have any questions for Shane? He fishes down that Nye River area. We actually might just get Marty. Do you want to come back on since you're watching? Because we can go with multiple people here. Let me know in the comment section if you want to pop on real quick. So now we have Shane and Shane's goes. Remove old Shane. There we go.
There you go. Okay. I don't know where I froze off at, but
you were starting to talk about the chatterbait.
Yeah. So I'll fish the chatterbait a little bit once those bass move into that 2 to 4 foot right before they start nesting. That works pretty well as pretty good bait. Something a lot of people don't use a lot of, but I like tube bait.
Oh wow.
And I like the big tube bait, and a little spin I put on a tube bait is I will put a black curly tail grub, especially in the green pumpkin, inside the tube bait. And it's like candy to them. I've done real well on a tube bait, especially, again, right before you know that they're getting on those nests. It's a pretty effective bait as well. And it's, it's a type of swim bait, really, a tube is, but something that's been around a lot longer than some of the newer swim baits. So something I have in my arsenal that I use a lot of.
Now, what's your tackle setup for that? Are you throwing that on super light gear or?
No, just kind of a quick tackle rundown. I keep 6 bait casters in my boat, and I keep 3 spinning rods. And the one spinning rod that I use is a medium heavy, with 14-pound fluorocarbon, and that's for this guy right here. It's typically just for wacky worm. I use a medium action spinning rod for my swim bait, or with 10-pound fluorocarbon on it as well, and that's what I'll also throw this tube bait on, is 10-pound fluorocarbon on a medium spinning rod. I have a medium light rod that's for drop shotting, but for all of my action baits, from my spinner bait, I throw on a medium heavy halo rod with all of my reels are Daiwa Tatula reels. And the heaviest I use in this area is 16-pound test. And I can pull I had no problem pulling 6 and 7, 8-pound bass out of moss and sticks with 16-pound fluorocarbon. I haven't had any issue with that. But almost all of my rods, I have one heavy rod, and everything else I'll throw on a medium heavy. Hey, Marty.
We got.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going? Got Rippin' Lips on too.
You hear me?
Yep.
So, guys, now we have Marty Lawson of Rippin' Lips on. He's been on this show. Well, he's been on the show once, and then also he has a podcast episode dropping this Tuesday, actually, talking about just the fisheries down near you guys, because there's a lot of water down there that I don't think people really know about, which is surprising to me. But yeah, like we're getting on tackle, Marty. I don't know what are well, while you do some background work on your environment, we'll there you go. What are your top baits too? Like, do you throw in the tube this time of year? What are your thoughts on the spinner bait?
Yeah. So Shane, I consider the spinner bait king. I'm still learning from him. I do throw the spinner bait. Haven't had nearly the success that he has. So, him and I kind of do opposite things, throwing the spinner bait and the chat and running stuff like that, while I'm over on the opposite bank of him, catching little dinks with my drop Ned rig. So, we'll be out on the water at the same time, and I'll be catching. I'm doing fine, and I'll text my buddy Shane and say, "Hey, how you doing wherever you're at?" And he comes back with a video, and he holds up a 7-pounder, and he just looks at the camera and he goes, 7-pounder, big fish, big bass, big bass. So he picks on me a lot with that spinner bait, but I'm still learning from this guy. He's fantastic. If you ask him a question, he's going to answer you. He's going to tell you how he does things. So yeah, I mean, I'm the finesse guy. He's the power guy, and unfortunately for me, he pretty much beats me out all the time. I might have numbers. he'll have he'll uh, he'll have size.
Yeah, I do switch over to the finesse world when the fishing requires me to.
Mhm.
But I will say that, what was it, last weekend or 2 weekends ago? Marty was out with me on the lake, and
Oh.
I did catch one right under his boat, or pretty close to under his boat.
James H. Yeah, I love Tatulas too. They're a really really good one. And guys, yeah, please ask some questions. I know we got one here that's off the fishing topic because everyone wants to know the secret of this pimped out electric boat. Matthew asks, I want to hear about this electric boat. I don't even know if you have a picture of it or if you could send it to me and I could like screen share it or something. But like, yeah, you want to walk through that before we get back into the fishing stuff?
Yeah, real quick. So last year, when I made the decision to go with the electric boat versus buying a bass boat, I went and bought a low 16-foot, 60-inch wide. It's called the Roughneck boat. I bought the shell, with the trailer, of course. And what I did was I put the hatches in that I needed, and then decided how I wanted to lay out the electronics on the boat. So from the back to the front, I've got a 36 volt, 120 pound thrust. I think it's a Riptide Minn Kota motor in the back. Also in the back, I have a Garmin 93SV fish finder, and I have that just standard down. It's down and side scan. And the bench seat in the back, I hollowed that out and I put a patch into that. And I have my battery charger in there. So I have onboard battery charger. So when I come in, I just plug it in. Right? I don't have to worry about taking the battery charger and everything out. Now, the reason I went with a 60-inch wide boat is I like to be able to walk very freely from front to back. And also that allowed me, instead of bringing tackle boxes on and off, I have one tackle tote that's made by Plano. And I have all of my, small tackle boxes in there with my plastics in there. So I have one tote that carries all my tackle. And then it's easy. I can just throw things in there when I need to. It makes it really easy. So that's one of the reasons I like the wider boat. I did put a hatch under the deck because the Roughneck is a front decked boat. Underneath that deck, I put in, that's where I have my 24 volt battery system for my front trolling motor, which is not a Riptide, a Tarova Minn Kota 24 volt, 80 pound thrust with spot lock. You got to have spot lock. If you're going to buy a trolling motor today, make sure you get spot lock. From electronics on front, I have a 93SV ultra high definition fish finder with live scope on it. I just added the live scope here recently. I also put several USB connectors throughout the boat, laid those out for my YouTube or for my running my cameras and stuff like that. So I will tell you, I got plenty of power in that boat. And Marty's, this happened again yesterday. I pulled a bass boat off of Hunting Run Reservoir who ran out of electricity. So I can go all day long and then pull a bass boat back into the dock if I need to on that. So that's kind of the basic layout. And there's a video on my YouTube channel on it.
Tackle stuff.
Repeat that because your face just froze in a weird, like you saw it go. There we go. You're back. Say that again. But so while Marty gets his connection back, with your boat, have you ever thought about like the whole Torqeedo or electric outboards at some point in the future? I know they're like a Tesla. They're so expensive, but it's neat.
Yeah, so I probably will go to a bigger motor, especially when I start in the tournament series, and I'll probably go with Elco because they have the most flexibility, and you can get up to a 40 horsepower electric motor with those guys. And I'll probably go to a 20 horsepower Elco. It's all about batteries and battery size and battery weights and things of that nature to maximize. And right now I'm running AGM batteries, but I will be going to lithium. Actually, I'm going to get a 36 volt lithium in the next month or so. But that's what I'll probably go to. But I will tell you, just that 36 volt, 120 pound thrust motor I run 5 miles an hour. That's plenty of you know, it's pretty fast for just electric only lake. But yeah, you've got the Elco motors up there.
Hmm.
They're pretty nice.
Yeah, how many? These things suck electricity though. Good lord.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
between them and the Torqeedo, they're going to suck electricity, but
Yeah.
they do come with battery packs. And if you're gonna go with one of those motors, you got to go with lithium. It
Holy
just doesn't-
shit! 50 miles an hour on an electric boat. Good
Yes.
lord, that's insane.
Yeah, you can go.
Oh, dang. Okay, yeah, man, you would have some haul shot there if you had that on your boat.
Yeah, I'm going to go probably a 20 horse.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
I mean
still,
that's more than
Shane
enough. That'll probably go ahead.
He
Marty.
already likes to race the bass boats coming off the lake with his motors, and he just trucks on by him, and he says, "Hey, look at that! I'm beating a tracker today," and he just races right on past him.
yeah, it's just so like I really think like that is the deal though. If you're not going to be fishing tournaments, or honestly, if you're not around a lot of big water, yeah, go with an electric boat or something like that because it's so cool looking at that culture and stuff, and especially down where you guys are at in the Norfolk area, you have so much electric only water. It's insane.
Yeah, with the exception of Lake Anna, everything else is electric around here. I mean, it's just, you know, it makes sense. And you know, one of the things that it's not frustrating, but I just see it every day. And like I seen yesterday, people have their $60,000-$80,000 bass boats out on Hunting Run or these lakes, and the wind picks up and they drain their batteries, and I'm pulling them in. You know, those boats are built to be on, big lakes. So you know, if you're going to fish those lakes, build a boat to fish them, and you'll enjoy yourself a lot more versus worrying about, am I got enough power to get back to the boat ramp? You know, so go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was like, did you do this? Did you build it all by yourself, or did you like outsource it? Did you get help? Like, I think a lot of people, and I'm just going to speak for people that aren't asking this question, they get nervous or tentative, like, okay, I don't know if I have the skills to pimp out a boat starting from scratch. They just want to go buy one. And you can't really buy a pimped out John boat specifically like that.
No. I did have help. One of my best friends, and he's got a YouTube channel as well, Gary's Fish Tales. And I got to pump him a little bit. He's down in Florida. He came up and helped me with cutting in the decks or cutting in the hatches and helping me lay things out. But it was just he and I that went through and built this. So I didn't have really any outside help other than him. Really smart guy. You know, he does a lot of how-to stuff on his channel as well. But he and I put this together, just kind of decided, laid everything out, and made it happen. It can be a little overwhelming if you don't have a good plan. And if I would caution anybody, before you try to tackle that, decide what boat you want to use and what shell you want to go with, and lay out a good plan of how you want to put in hatches, put in electronics, things of that nature. You got to start with a solid plan before you start cutting into metal, for sure.
No, that's really good advice. Because yeah, I mean, guys, I think honestly, depending on where you live, that is kind of the deal. Especially if you're not, if the big tournaments of BFL stuff, that's the only reason. Besides living near big bodies of water, you want a $50,000 bass boat, is if you're trying to compete in those tournaments. But if you're fishing a Lake Frederick, which is up near us, or any of those lakes, like, you're just going to have way more fun and accessibility too. And it's probably, guys, it is cheaper. Like, I'm sorry, like it is way freaking cheaper. That kind of getting back to the fishing side of it. What type of wacky worms or worms do you guys like to throw besides Yamamoto? Do you guys have anything else particular that you enjoy throwing?
I use the Yum version a little bit. One of the local crafters down here, local plastics guy, Dak Baits, which Marty turned me on to. Actually, I've got packages of his stuff here. I'm not a big fan of a specific brand when it comes to stick baits, if you will. They all work. People will argue, one falls different than the other. But what I have found is when you skip that bait up against a tree or a bush or into a bed and you start shaking it, the bass are going to jump on it. They don't go, "What's a Gary Yamamoto brand versus a whatever brand?" So I'm kind of brand agnostic from that aspect. But I'm kind of got on board with supporting some of the local builders and plastic pourers. So that's what I'm going with this year.
Marty, what about you?
Yeah, for me, So in the comments, I mentioned using the 2 O-rings, and in one of my videos, I show the reason why I use those 2 O-rings. It saves baits, especially when you're using something like a Yamamoto, because they do tend to tear easy.
Mhm.
You know, that's a lot different than a Z-Man. A Z-Man, you're not going to tear it very easy, but you're also not going to use it weightless as a wacky worm because it'll just sit on top. So yeah, I like to use Dak Bates. He pours the trick worms now. I really like the trick worms, either the 5 or the 6-inch trick worms that I use. I kind of stay away from just the normal stick baits. So I like the KVD finesse worms and the baby finesse worms. I really like to throw those because it's versatile enough where I can throw it several different ways. I can throw it whack. I can put it on my drop shot. I can fish it Ned rig. So I have a lot of applications with what I use as opposed to just using a stick bait. So yeah, Dak Bates, he pours the majority of stuff that I'm using now. And if it's not that, then I'm using something like a KVD trick worms.
Yeah, I will add to that. Once the bass get off the beds, and there's several different plastics I use, and I can talk about that in a moment. But I'm a big fan of, and I grew up in Oklahoma and Texas, bass fishing, and the old Texas rig culprit curly tail worm is just a really good bait.
Mhm.
You can't beat that, especially when the moss and the weeds come in. And I will fish it weighted and weightless, and just float around lily pads and kind of give it that snake look. And man, it's a good go-to bait, especially post spawn and into the summer. And I've caught my biggest bass 10 pounds 6 ounces on a culprit worm, so I'm kind
Wow.
of got that in the list of baits I won't get rid of for now. But it's a good quality. Not just that brand, but just I call it an auger tail worm. That big sickle tail worm is a good one to have, no matter how you want to fish it, especially in the summer.
When do the bass
Hey,
start spawning near you guys? Oh, go ahead, Marty.
hey, Shane, before you ask about when they start spawning, Shane, can you go over a little bit about your swim bait tactics? Because when you're done throwing that spinner bait, you pick up that swim bait all the time, and I think that'd be a good education for people about why you pick that up and how you.
Yeah, once the bass get off the beds and they start moving out and start going into that post spawn, I mean, they want to eat what's being hatched out, for sure. So I picked up last year, and I mentioned this earlier. Kitech is kind of the brand that I picked up, and I went to the 4-inch, and I'm going to move to a 5-inch this year, a 5.5-inch, but 4-inch Kitech worm or Kitech Easy Shiner. And I put it on a very light Ned head, jig head. I don't want to get that bait down deep quick. I kind of let it flutter. And it was just, it works. It worked really well. I don't know. Yeah. Basically, there you go.
Basically, guys.
Yeah. I probably, no kidding, and you can go back and count on my channel. I just started my channel last year, but I probably caught 150, 200 bass on that. Over the summer. I just killed them on it. But I think the key, 2 keys I would say when it comes to fishing the swim bait that I learned last year was match the hatch, A,
Mhm.
and B, don't try to get it deep quick. Try to let it flutter down. And the reason I like the Kitech is it's got a lot of good action. That Easy Shiner has a lot of natural falling action that works real well. But yeah, and off points, once they get off the beds, I start moving off those primary points and focus on 8, 10, 12, 14 feet of water, just like anything else you're going to fish for bass in the summer post spawn. But it's really a good tactic. And as I mentioned before, I fish it on 10-pound fluorocarbon on a medium action rod, spinning rod. So that's kind of, and before last year, I rarely threw the swim bait that much. I really fell in love with it because it worked out for me last year, and I'll probably jump right back to that tactic once they go into the post spawn this year.
Well, I just muted myself. That was stupid.
Yeah.
All right. So the swim bait is the hardest thing with the swim bait is you got to be able to take the information and apply it correctly to the body of water you're on. Like, and
Yes.
again, I always use the Bassmasters article because I read about it and then I tried to implement it with like a 6-inch like bait on a pond and it didn't work out well because the bait, you're not necessarily with a swim bait in general, they're not reacting. They like you would with a chatterbait or a lipless bait where it just runs past them. They're going to analyze that sucker a
Yep.
lot and it has got to mimic it. So if you are fishing bluegill and minnows and this thing looks like a 12-inch Huddleston, it's not going to fly with them. It has to look like it. So
Yep.
when I showed these here or like guys like the American trash fish, you know, you're trying to mimic what's in that pond specifically. And even if it's a little bit smaller, you can still get big bites if it mimics it really perfectly, especially when that water warms up.
Yeah.
But yeah, swim baits, they are deadly when you actually match it, and especially if you have Panoptics too. That definitely helps because you got to get it right in front of them or in their kill zone because they're not going to track it down from 100 feet unless the visibility's there.
Yeah, that you got to know where those bass are exactly. Once you get it within a foot of the face, though, and it looks like something they want to eat, it's a pretty good success rate of catching a fish, I think.
Now, with Panoptics, this is, I think, a really good question to ask you. Yesterday, I was talking to Marty about the different bait fish and a lot of the reservoirs near you. Have you been able to see with Panoptics, with the forward-facing sonar, really the behavior of the bait in these
Yes.
lakes and how they move around? What is
Yes.
that like this time of year?
Yeah, I this time of year, I can follow the bait fish, and what I've noticed this time of year, if I find the bait fish out in the deep water, there's no bass associated with them, right? Because the bass are moving up for the spawn. But once I find a group of bait fish that's in that 6 to 9 foot of water, the bass, are not, in the summertime, I notice the bass are below the school more, right? I can see the bass below the bait ball, as I call it. Marty probably heard me say this several times on my video. I show it on there. They kind of, in the summer, they move up. But what I've noticed this year in the spring specifically is the bass kind of, hover at the same depth. And I've watched them with my Panoptics attack the bait ball, and they're going this way, right? They're
That's crazy.
versus coming up, which I found odd. So that's just something I discovered this spring, and I've seen it not just once, a couple times, which that was one of the reasons I decided to switch over to a jerk bait a few times and catch bass on the jerk bait, which worked out. But primarily in the summer, the bass are below the bait ball. And I don't know who I was talking to, maybe at the lake yesterday, or maybe it was Marty or somebody, but one of the things that I found last year when I was finding the bait balls, and I would throw a swim bait in the middle of it, is I was catching a lot of 12 and 14-inch bass, which is fine, right? Catching bass, period, is fun. And I love catching any of them. But I would see on my electronics that the bigger bass were below the bait ball. And I couldn't get my bait down fast enough to get to the bigger bass because the 12 and 14-inch bass were taking it before the bigger ones. So I'm going to kind of switch that tactic up a little bit this year, because the bigger bass hover below that bait ball, and they will follow that bait ball. And I have followed it with my electronics, and on any given day, I would catch 8 to 10, 12 bass out of one group, one bait ball of bait, especially out on Hunting Run and on Mooney Lake out here. So
That's crazy. Like, because when you're fishing grass like that, like, and usually, and Marty, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. It seems like grass fish can sometimes just disappear, especially in the colder weather. Are these fish in these grassy places? Are they just chasing bait, or are they still locking down on the grass?
They lock down on the grass once it gets really warm. When that water gets above 88, 85 degrees, they lock down. They quit chasing. June, early June, late May, early June, mid-June, that's when they're chasing, and they're out off the points. And I call it schooling bass. I'll see them hitting the top of the water in the middle of the day, chasing bait, many times. And Marty's shaking his head. I've got a couple videos out there on my channel where I can just see them busting shad on the top of the water, and I'm just out there, catching them left and right. But once the heat of the summer moves in, they lock down in those pockets, lock down in the grass, and you got to start fishing them in the pockets and around the edges of the grass.
Yeah, and Shane knows also seen it. when we've been out there, him and I in close proximity, that we've seen these bass just chase the shad up so shallow.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, bass's backs are sticking out of the water, and they're just crashing them onto that shoreline. And that's when, Shane will still be throwing. Shane will throw a spinnerbait up in that shallow water and bring it across, and I'm using something like a wacky worm or a Ned rig where we're throwing it up so shallow. I'm talking 8 inches of water, and these bass are just crashing to shore. You can find some good sized ones, but a lot of times they're going to be in that 12, 14, 16 inch. But if you just want to catch bass, you can spot them crashing on the shore a lot. And, I mentioned to you, I don't know if it was yesterday, that phenomenon that I saw of all those bass that were just in this huge school. They were all 12 to 14 inches. And this was at Hunting Run. And I was just sitting in this cove, and I stood up and watched them just swimming around the boat as they were almost like herding these bait fish. And they were smaller, anywhere from 12 to 14 inches. But I'm talking there was over 100 of them in this school, and I've never seen like that.
Yeah.
That was at Hunting Run.
Yeah. They really do school in that late May, early to mid June. They school up in all these reservoirs down here. It's just the different. There's a different type of bait fish in each one. Like Able Lake doesn't have a lot of bait fish, but as soon as that bluegill spawn starts, I catch some big bass that start in the 3 to 5 to 6 pound range. That start to kind of school around in some of those coves where the bait fish are. Or where the bluegill are spawning, and they do real well catching them.
You're muted.
Yeah, I know. I keep doing that while I'm fumbling around adjusting things. Unless you fish schooling fish and bait patterns specifically, because if you guys grow up on the tidal Potomac or the Upper Shenandoah or the Rappahannock, I don't think you understand bait movements, and that's the one thing that hurt me in college fishing until I got to go down to those places and fish blueback, which really opened my mind to like fish will move and travel, and
Yes.
if you're fishing grass fisheries, and what I grew up on, we're bluegill and grass fisheries. Those fish just lock, and once you find the juice, you're good. When you're on a shad bite or a blueback bite, those fish will literally be here today, gone tomorrow. And some of the best tactics for you tournament anglers is literally just drive the boat until you find bait. And you think, you're in the tournament, you're not fishing, but like you waste time if the bait's not there. Those bass, it's so crazy how much they'll move and just hunt like wolves and just hunt the bait.
Yep. Yeah. And, growing up on big lakes, I grew up on big lakes in Texas and Oklahoma where you got to find the shad. Once that shad bait comes in, the bite starts. You're right. You spend a lot of time looking, right, trying to find that bunch of shad that they're feeding on. But once you find them, I mean, you can stack the live well real quick. But as fast as they're there, they can be gone that quick too. They can be gone real quick. So it's amazing how fast you can find the fish and how fast they'll be gone. Especially if you get on a good bait ball that they're chasing around.
Yeah, no, 100%. And guys, just real quick, so I can plug his channel. This is his channel right here on YouTube. In case you guys want to look at the screen, be able to understand his thumbnail, so you can quickly subscribe to him. But give him a follow. He's got a lot of really, really good content. He's very knowledgeable. Help him out. Just trying to do that real quick for you there, bud. And then Marty, go on back.
Yeah. So I don't have all these electronics boats, so I'll tell you my best tactic when I'm out on the water and I'm looking for these bait balls is I try and find out where Shane is, and I follow him so he can bring out the bait ball. Optics. Yeah, I mean, if you come down to these local waters and you see either Shane or myself, we're more than happy to lend knowledge and let you know what's working out there. Every time I go out and I see Shane, the first things out of his mouth is, "Hey, Marty, they're at 8 or 9 feet. They're at 5 to 6 feet. They're up real shallow, crashing the shore." If I see him, he immediately tells me that. He
Yep.
just lets me know where they're at, so I know what I need to do to get on the fish right away. So if you see us, anytime I have a little 10-foot-2 bass raider with a trolling motor on it, and Shane has the big tricked out John boat. Either one of us, come up to us. We can stop fishing for a minute. We're out there just having fun and catching fish. And if we can turn someone else on to catching some fish where we're at, we're more than happy to do it. We're not super secretive. We can tell you where we've been, where we would go, things like that. It's like Shane said, it's a public place, and we want to get people out there catching fish. So let's all have fun. And if you see us, give us a shout out. We'll tell you what we're doing, what's working. I'll tell you sometimes I ain't caught a damn thing, but I'll tell you what I tried. So maybe you're not doing the same thing I did and not catching anything.
Yeah. I honestly will go up to a fishermen and they'll tell me they're not catching anything. I'll say, hey, try this. That's the way I am. If you wanted to be a secretive bass fisherman, if I wanted to be a secretive bass fisherman, I wouldn't have a YouTube channel. And I will tell you exactly what points to go to. I'll give you waypoints if you want to go catch fish. I mean, I just want to share and enjoy the time in the outdoors with folks. So, if you see me out there, no doubt, I will share with you. I'll pull you in if you run out of battery juice as well, if you're out on one of these lakes. So
for a small fee, he will tow you back in.
Yeah, my friend's like, you need to be the local Coast Guard down there, as many people as you pulled in. But if you don't mind,
those people that Shane pulled in better subscribe to his YouTube channel.
Both are subscribers. I would like, if I could, just one real quick plug. Yesterday, I started a local. It's actually a virtual big bass tournament. You can see it's on my channel how to register. If you want to register for that, I'm giving away over $500 in prizes, and it's for the biggest bass for the month of April. I've only got about 30 folks that have signed up, but I'm giving away a brand new Halo rod and Daiwa Tatula reel. And then second place is a $100 gift card from Tackle Warehouse, and then third place a $50 gift card. So if you want to join, just email me at Shane Flynn Outdoors. I'll send you a code, which you got to use that code to register your fish. It's pretty simple. But if anyone's interested in trying to get some free stuff, because you get out there and have fun fishing, have at it. The more the merrier.
And I just linked the video in the comment section below, guys, straight to his Big Bass Challenge video on YouTube. That way, after the live stream or whatever, you can click over to that and you can kind of get into that, because that's a really, really, really cool deal. And while we still have these guys on, please, guys, give us a couple of questions that you would like to ask these guys that came on the show. Also, what kind of content do you want to see going forward? I saw one there by James about doing a punching video. We're definitely I'm trying to keep the content kind of semi-seasonal. And so once we get more into punching season for up here, because we're not down at Lake Okeechobee, we do that 24/7. We'll definitely get Chris Arvin and a bunch of other people on to give us their takes on how to do that correctly. Let's see. What is your favorite? Oh, here we go. That's what we got here. I'd love to see some more bank fishing, ponds, small. Yeah. Are there any fishing tournaments around over? Okay. Bank fishing. Yes. Yeah. You know what? That is actually, Boogie, that's a really good question. Like, that's something that they need to start doing. We have kayak, electric boat only tournaments, big boat tournaments. They need to start doing bank only tournaments. I don't know how you do that, but that would be interesting.
That's something that I mentioned to someone the other day that, I was out on a lake and I don't have a boat. Why couldn't we do a virtual bank only big bass challenge or a virtual, one of the other tournaments I'm putting out is your 3 biggest bass of the month. Why couldn't it be the challenge be you have to catch them from the bank? It should be an easy to do, and get folks that don't have the opportunity to buy a bass boat or a kayak or whatever, give them the opportunity to compete with each other. It should be something that should be, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll throw that out there. Because I growing up in Oklahoma, I pond fished. Every pond within 2 miles of walking where I grew up on a ranch, there were shoe prints where I fished around that pond. And I think bank fishing and pond fishing and small lake fishing is just a great way to figure out how to fish. And it's a good way to catch a lot of bass.
100%. And for a lot of people, like, yeah, that's all you have. And what was so crazy is like there is a lack of content out there specifically for people that fish the bank, and that is it is a disservice because yeah, we all start that way.
Yeah.
You know, we all start fishing from the bank. So now that I have you guys, what would your favorite lakes be in the area you're in right now? And then what would your favorite area be in May? Same place or different? Shane, let's go with you first.
I would say right now, today, it would be Hunting Run would be number one, followed closely by Able Lake. Mooney, I just haven't. It's a much bigger lake, but I've already caught bass over 7 pounds in Mooney Lake this year, so I can't rule that out. But I understand Hunting Run and Able Lake real well, so I would say Hunting Run first, and then 2 Able Lake. And when it switches to May, I would say Able first, and then Hunting Run or Mooney second or third. You're going to be able to catch big bass in all those lakes. I will just say Able Lake, and Marty would agree with me. If you don't know that lake, extremely, he's shaking his head. He didn't even like to go out there. Extremely hard to fish, but lots of big bass.
So my top two are right now is Hunting Run and Mooney. I've fished Mooney, I think, a lot more than Shane has so far, and I have a lot of different spots picked out there on Mooney that I just love. But as far as if you're a novice, and you can get a boat, you can rent a boat at either one of these places.
Yep.
You can go out and catch fish at either one of these places. There are big fish in there, and you have to find them. But yeah, Run just provides so many different types of situations for you to try things. There's big shallow flats, there's stumps, there's grass, there's great points, you know, all those different things there at Hunting Run that you can find pretty easily. Now at Mooney, it's a little bit more difficult to find the structure and things like that. You can go into a finger on Mooney and not catch a thing, and go around to the next finger and catch 20 bass. It's hit or miss, I think, out of the two. And then finally, you know, I do like, and I don't know, Shane, if you've ever fished Nye Reservoir.
I have.
Nye can be fun. They do call it No Fish Nye, but I catch fish there. So, you know, but I think, yeah, my top one right now is Hunting Run and then Mooney. And another reason why I picked those two is, you know, in the month of March, Hunting Run was only open on Saturday and Sunday. So now that it's open 4 days a week, you know, I'll take a Thursday off or a Friday off and I'll go to Hunting Run because I can go any day of the week to Mooney. So
Yeah.
that you know, that's the other thing. It's schedule driven also. Where can we go and where do you want to go? I mean, Hunting Run is, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes from me, where Mooney is more of a half an hour to 40 minutes based on traffic. So, you know, it all depends. I pick and choose either one. Whatever's most convenient for me on that day is what I do.
Yeah, the one thing I would add, though, that I think is very important that people need to understand is something that Marty hit on. Hunting Run is open on certain days. And I would tell you, if you were out there today on Hunting Run, there are probably 40 to 60 boats on that lake. It is very crowded on Saturday and Sunday. Thursday, Friday is not as crowded, but you will have competition. And this time of year in the spring, everybody's out there to see if they can catch a big bass, right? So you will be fishing behind other fishermen, especially if you get there later in the morning. It can be crowded, but you know, the bass population's pretty good in that lake, so you're still going to probably catch fish. And you know, Mooney, on the other hand, because it's a larger lake, and it's just north of there. On your map, if you scroll up kind of north and maybe just a little bit east, you should be able to see Mooney. Yep, there it is. Nope, down just one little bit more. Right there. No.
Yeah. No.
We will find this eventually, guys.
Yeah.
Shit. There.
There.
This one here. It's long again. Maybe it's a little bit further.
It's a little bit further south.
It's
Okay.
just
It's
it's south. Yeah, it's just above. Is that Hunting Run right there?
Yeah, it's Hunting Run right here.
Yes. It's if you zoom in just a little bit, go up to there. It is right there. Boom.
And then, so I'm gonna leave this up here. So while I go to the restroom, could you, Shane, where do you guys like to fish on here? I'll be right back.
Okay. I would say on this map, and Marty has fished it more, but if you look, there's three fingers. One, the one to the far left is pretty good, and then the finger that's to the extreme right, I've done real well on, especially off the points there, and that you can see there's an island out there. From that island around in that area has been pretty good for me. The few times I've only been out to Mooney maybe 7 or 8 times. So Marty, I'd let you jump on there where you like to fish at primarily.
Yeah. So the other day, last Saturday, when I was out there in that windstorm in my little boat taking on water, I actually went to that cove that is, as we're looking at it, that finger that runs up on the right-hand side. And I went all the way to the back, to that little tiny sliver in the back of it. And that's where I caught 2 bass. But normally when the weather is decent for me and my boat, I can up that finger in the middle. And depending on which way the wind is blowing will determine which shore I fish. Now, if we were able to move that map and we were able to go a little bit further north, there's a couple of big rocks up there that you can visibly see sticking out of the water. And I can tell you, I have never caught a fish into that finger further than those rocks. I've never caught a fish back there. It's everything from those rocks south in that center finger, and you can fish either shore. The one thing that I will say, and Shane will back me up, is that milfoil that grows in this place, come July, August timeframe, guys like Shane, especially if the water level goes down, have a really hard time putting their boats in because it's very shallow at ending, and the weeds are it's inundated with weeds. But for someone like me or someone in a kayak, it's perfect time to go because you can actually go into some of these pockets and punch down through these weeds into these holes and really pull out some nice bass because they're just sitting there waiting. But yeah, this gets very difficult to fish later in the year, and Shane can attest to that. Yeah,
the last year they dropped the water because they were working on the boat ramp, and they did finish the boat ramp. But I got to the point where I was getting I was having to push my boat off the trailer just to get off the trailer in the water. I had to put it in hip waders, and then it got so shallow that I couldn't get in there. But the grass and the moss get really, really thick. So if you are out there with a trolling motor, you need to have a weedless prop on your motor for sure, because you can get it wound up real quick. And some of the moss points come out 80 to 100 yards off those points.
It's really good. And the thing is that lake is so clear that you can actually see those weed lines. So once you get out there, I like to just find those weed lines and just park. Shut off my trolling motor and look at these weed lines. And I cast right along the edge of these weed lines that are there. And I crushed it last year doing that. Fishing into those weeds can really be difficult because it's so thick. But if you can have a really good time if you fish right along the edge of those weed lines once you find them. And you can physically see them just looking into the water 6 and 7 feet deep. You can see those weed lines where they are, and you can have a blast once you find them.
Yeah, one of the tactics that really worked for me last year when I got out there is not just the weed lines, but you see these black holes in the middle of the weed, in the pockets of weeds, and if you can flip a Texas rig or a drop shot or something in that black hole, which is just a space where the moss didn't grow, maybe there's a rock down on the bottom where the moss didn't grow, that was a very successful tactic. I would catch bass in those holes anytime I would find them. So if you see those holes, if you got your polarized glasses on, you can pick them out pretty quick. But the holes in the moss beds, a weedless Texas rig or a drop shot or something like that, you can really do real well, especially late in the summer on that lake.
Why do you think people are afraid of grass or fishing grass? I know there's a lot of people that like get so antsy when they see like miles of vegetation.
I love grass.
Mhm.
And you know, my best friend down in Florida, he's down there fishing in some of the lakes and reservoirs there, you know, Seminole, and I think he's out on Seminole today. But you know, he was like, there's so much grass to punch through. And in my mind, I look at that, it goes, that's so many places to catch a fish.
Mhm.
But I think it's more along the lines that it can be overwhelming when you see all that vegetation, and people just don't know where to start, or either that or confused on how to fish it.
Yeah. I tend to agree with that same mindset. And you have to use your imagination more. That's the thing with offshore fishing is it's not you're hitting a dock post. If it's not topped out and it's under the water, you got to visualize it if you don't have 360 or Panoptics. And not only is it not visual, I think there's more of a patience thing. People that grass fish, I think that are good at it are generally more patient and can slow down. You know, guys like the power poles were a Florida invention, and they were made so you could just lock down on an area and just stay there. And this is the question I get from all the kids when I talk to high schoolers about when you fish grass compared to when you're fishing a bunch of docks and stuff. Once you find them, you normally sit. There's very, very rarely are you going to stick a 3-pounder in a grass bed and there's not another one within casting distance. It's very odd. But if you're fishing a dock post, there might just be one fish on that dock at that time, that one in that kill zone. And that can be, I think, frustrating to a lot of people that there's a patience factor there. Especially if you're fishing a tournament, let's say at Mattawoman on the Potomac. If there's a good grass bed in Mattawoman, there's enough fish there for a bunch of boats. You might not like it mentally to deal with seeing so many people around you, but there's enough fish there. And that's way different than if you're fishing. Again, I'll go back to like a dock bite where, if there's 3 or 4 boats in there, you might need to leave.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. And then guys, if you have to hop off, you can. If you want to stay, you are more than welcome to. I don't know what you guys are, what you guys' schedule are, because I'm going to go a little bit longer. Start July. Fell in love with it. It's not common to see a ton of grass. Yeah, like, and again, that's the same thing. Like grass, you just got to build confidence by going to fisheries, and that's what's so cool about highlighting these fisheries down there in the Richmond area is. And Marty, we talked about this yesterday. You can go from one lake to another in 10 minutes, and they're completely different.
Yep.
Their nature's different. The fish behavior is different, and that's how you become better. Up here, you know, if you're just fishing the tidal Potomac, you become, you know, the quote unquote like just a river rat, and you don't have the ability to get a very broad education. And I really encourage you guys to try to get out of your comfort zone and make a trip down that way. Cause there's a lot of really, really cool fisheries down in this Richmond area. And this other one that I saw, where was it? I think it's like Little Creek Reservoir. It's like freaking massive. Let me find this real quick.
That's all the way down in the Norfolk area. That's quite a ways down there.
Yeah. And like, so I went on a trip down to Norfolk, like I think it was like last summer, and I didn't realize that they have a lot of electric motor only lakes too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I primarily if it's not Lake Anna from here to Richmond or to Norfolk, it's electric only, pretty much.
Now, how does a tournament series down there work for you guys? Is it a 3-fish limit? Is it just catch, weight, release? How does it generally work for your tournament circuits on electric only lakes?
So I don't think Shane is fishing the tournaments yet. I just started this year. You know, we have to go by what they put out on the various lakes. Like the one that I'm fishing next week, there is a slot limit on fish that you can keep. So not only do we have to pay attention to that, but we have to pay attention to the bag limits. So pretty much all the places we're going to fish in this tournament, and these are mostly, you know, in the Richmond area, which is still, that's an hour for me, but it's a 5-fish limit. And look, we are fish Little Creek Reservoir. we're fishing Appomattox Boathouse. We're fishing the Chickahominy River and Chick Lake, and Chesden is the other one. So the one that we're doing next weekend is the closest one to me, and that's Aquia Harbor, which is essentially a finger off the Potomac. So, you know, Shane and I were talking last night about how to fish these tidal areas and things like that, because he has experience in that, which I don't at all. But places like Chickahominy River and Chick Lake, those are places that the tournaments I'm going to be in, that's where they fall, and they're all 5 fish limit. So
Oh wow.
you got to call,
Yeah.
and you also have to watch the slot limit. You know, it says you can't keep fish that are, you know, over 20 inches, then you're stuck. You know, you're not going to catch a giant and be able to weigh it in. You're going to catch maybe, you know, a 3-pounder. And if you can catch 5 3-pounders, you might win the tournament because you're sticking within that slot limit and you're still catching your 5 bass. So,
Yeah.
you know, it all depends. There's another group here, more local, Shane.
The Fredericksburg Weekend Fishermen.
Yeah, weekend bass, and they do fish some of the reservoirs around here, and I'm thinking about doing that, except for their requirement is your boat has to be 12 feet, and unless I
Yeah.
strap plywood on my little boat, I'm not going to meet the 12 feet.
Yeah, that's the group that I probably will start fishing next year. I've got 3 or 4 anglers that are solo. They're asking me to join them, so I'll probably join next year. I kind of wanted to focus on my channel this year, but and they have the standard 5 fish limit as well. It's a partner. It's a 2 fisherman series, so it's
that's
the limit for the boat, not individual. So it's
Right. Exactly.
it's a,
Same for me.
yeah. Yeah. The tournament I fished down in Florida back in December with my good friend, I mean, we were fishing against each other, which was fun, right? Because you're good friends. But when you can partner up on a boat, you get a better chance of winning. So I'm looking forward to maybe jumping into that early next spring.
I guess you really got to
Yeah,
also
Shane,
think
if you need a
about.
partner. You know, I'm right here.
I mean, I guess you really also have to strategize. Like, there's extra weight when you start filling a live well too. Like about how much juice you have left versus your
Yes.
range and stuff. I never even thought. Like, that thought just crossed my mind. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, there's all kinds of factors. I mean, you've got to start thinking about, even from the aspect of, all right, I want to have that, fast motor on my boat. But when I put, water's what averages 8 pounds per gallon, and you've got a 25-pound live well, you're putting another body in a boat, right? So that's going to drain those batteries. It really does. So you got to really start thinking about how far you can run. And what time of day you want to run there, and things of that nature. You got to have a plan. You just can't get out there and start running the lake, 60 miles an hour like you do in a bass boat and go spot to spot. It makes you become a better focused fisherman because you got to really, conserve your energy on your boat, and take the time to try to catch those fish where you're at.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree.
I can tell you, my buddy and I, we use his John boat, and he has, a trolling motor up front, foot control. We run 2 trolling motors on the back, and then we also have the live well. So we carry 5 batteries with us, 3 in the back, 1 up front, and then 1 for the live well. And that extra battery is just backup because, if you get to a spot like we did our first tournament, we went further than anyone else, and we were fishing, and then we hit the wind coming back. So we're fighting the wind now, and we have a full live well, and it really does drain batteries. So it's really nice when I had, an extra battery to hook into, to keep us going. And those are things you really do have to think about. We're getting ready to fish a tidal area, and we're going to make sure we have he's going to have his gas motor with him for right now because you can run gas there. And we're going to use that just to run to our spots that we want to hit. But other than that, we're carrying we're carrying a trolling motor and an extra battery just in case. You do have to think about all those things. And fortunately, there's guys like Shane out there that, guys that don't think about those things. There's, Super Shane to the rescue is going to tow you in. So, yeah, you really have to be smart about what you do. I have to do that all the time. I carry two batteries on my boat. Usually I can fish the entire day with one battery, but then if I'm all the way down the other end of the lake and it's time for me to go home, I got the battery that I can switch out and run full steam all the way back to the landing. So you do have to think about these things.
Yeah.
So, all right, readjust this here. So, guys, please always just give these gentlemen a follow at their channels. They're really, really good content creators. They have fantastic information to give everybody. Again, this is Fishing the DMV. Please like and subscribe to the channel. The bigger this channel grows, the more guests we can have on, the more content we can get out there. We do podcasts every week, along with informational live streams, as long as just how to and fishing videos too. We try to cover it all in this area. Please, in the comments, let us know below some questions that you have for these gentlemen while we still have them. And where do you guys want to fish this year? What is a dream place that you actually want to go and fish? Now, I do know there was one question. Let's see. Where is James H? I don't know, James, if you're still listening. Was it? Where are you, James? All right. Oh, I love a breakdown of Burke Lake. Well, you know what? While we get a couple of questions for these guys, we can actually all do that together. So Burke Lake is located in Northern Virginia. It is a very small fishery. And honestly, James, when I guess I'll just go first. When you're facing really, really, really small fisheries like this, you got to almost treat it like a pond. You're not going to get away from the traffic. Pressure's there. There's only a few key zones that those fish are going to be in. I call them like kill zones, but where they're going to stage up. And so whether it's a 1 acre pond or a small lake like this, there's only so many points. So if you know where they are, the next factor is trying to trigger them to bite. And I suggest you are going to always go to two ends of the spectrum. This is very much like how the Japanese really fish, because they only have 3 lakes in their country. You're either going to go to the extreme of big baits, like a swim bait that they don't see. I'm talking a big swim bait, or you're going to go as small as possible. And that doesn't mean just baits. It means line. Usually, 8 to 10 pound test is fine, except when you get stupid pressure. And that's where going down to 6, 5, 4, 3. That's important to kind of get bit. They're so used to having all those boats, all that traffic on them. That's kind of what you got to be thinking about in those smaller places. And I like to fish smaller places because you know where there are. It's different when you go to a Smith or Lake Murray and you've got, it's an ocean and you got to find them. In a small place, you can cover it pretty quickly. And I do know that there are shad in there as well. So if you have Panoptics or something like that, that's a huge factor, because they might just be bait chasers or high suspenders in the water column. But I mean, for you guys, like, what are your thoughts on a lake like this smaller lake, electric motor only lake in Northern Virginia?
Yeah, the first thing I tell you, just what you said, I would target on what you called the kill zones, right? Especially depending on the time of year, like points, starting at points and going into the coves. If you, for some reason, have the intel where let's just say this time of year, where the bass are spawning, so cove there, I'm going to go there first, right? They might not be on the beds yet, but they're going to be hanging around in those areas. But if it's the middle of summer, I'm going to just do what you just said, hit those kill zones where, they just start at the points, maybe the island. One thing that I will tell you on small lakes that have a riprap.
Riprap is huge. I think we just lost Shane.
Uh-oh. That's not good.
So, yeah, Marty, what are your thoughts on this place?
Man, I look at it. I just don't see where there's a whole lot of there's several main points, and that's where everyone's going to fish. So I think, if you're going to go to this place, you got to think out of the box on this, because everyone's going to be fishing those main points, and everyone's going to be driving into the back of those coves. So I think my tactics would be to really, I don't know, I'd find these long shorelines where possibly there's grass growing and fish those areas, because I think they're going to be fished less than a lot of the other places. And the other thing I would do is switch up and throw something different. I look
Yes,
at a place
agreed.
like everyone's going to be out there throwing green pumpkin, watermelon, black and blue. Go to something like an Aaron's Magic or a margarita mix or a Twilight from Z-Man. Throw something different than what the bass see constantly. I think that's where you would have your best success, is just find something different and use that. And that's what I would do. Sure, if it's not crowded, hit the points, see what you can do, but you have to think out of the box. Find some of those steeper banks. So you look at, if you were able to use this, you're not on Google Earth, are you?
Yeah, this is Google Earth.
So if you go to that 3D view and you kind of look at those banks, any place that has a steeper bank, like 45 degrees or more, along those shorelines, that's what I would hit. Because, like I said, a small fishery like this, it's crowded. Everyone's going to those points.
So I Googled it. It's 217 acres. 217 acres. So it is basically a pond.
Yeah, that's a small lake. Very small.
Yeah.
Big pond.
I mean, Shane, I don't know if you heard what I was saying, that everyone's
I
going to
did.
fish these points. You have to think out of the box. Find some of these long shorelines where you can make long casts parallel to the bank and see what you can find. That's what I do.
I do agree with you, Marty, on changing the colors, right? I mean, that's something they're going to see, those basic colors all the time. Switch up the colors.
Mhm.
One of the things that I've found that really work when it's tough sometimes is I go to my magic color and I'll call it piss off pink. I'll go to a pink trick worm, and for some reason I say piss off pink because it makes the bass mad and they bite it, I think. So just switch it up. I mean, this is my top bed fishing bait in the spring. When bass get on the bed, there's a white lizard, right? And a lot of people just throw a white lizard, but that they want to kill that white lizard when the bass are in the bed. So just think something different, that not only that they're going to try to bite, but might be something they want to attack just to get out of there. So because they don't got no hands, so they're going to bite it one way or the other.
And remember, when those weeds really start coming in, that's prime time to throw either a frog out on the top of those weeds and bring it across, or I like to also to just trigger that top water bite. I like to throw a Whopper Plopper loon color 75
Yes.
along the edge of those weed lines, and for some reason that black and white along the edge of those weed lines, man, they come out and kill it. I mean, they don't just come out and hit it easy; they crush it. I have more fun fishing that top water with the Whopper Plopper along the weed lines, and Shane knows where we fish. There's a lot of times you have these sticks that are just sticking up out of the water, and if you can maneuver that Whopper Plopper in between those sticks, because a lot of times they're 12 to 18 inches apart, you can sit there and throw a Whopper Plopper in there and bring it through those sticks. And as long as you can get them out of there quick, they're going to just kill it. And that's some of the funnest fishing there is. Early in the morning when it's glass, that's great. And then, of course, one other thing I'm going to add is, Shane, in June, you got to go with me, because we're gonna hype up the Rappahannock where I go and catch my smallmouth, and you're gonna go with me, and I'll take you up there, and we'll catch some smallmouth up there on the Rappahannock and the rapids.
Yeah, I'm in.
So, guys, that is some fantastic information, and we're definitely going to do a specific topwater like live stream and also some videos when we get closer to topwater season. And let us know what your favorite topwaters are too. Now, so this is a random guess, but we have Jared Mounts, who is literally pre-fishing right now on the Chickahominy for a youth tournament, and he said he wanted to try to do this whole like live thing. We may or may not have good service, but I said, what the hell, let's have him on here. Jared, do you have cell service? That's answering that question, isn't it?
Yeah.
He looked
How about
frozen
now?
right
Yeah, how
I can
about
hear you now. Talk to me. What's going on?
No, you dropped.
Yep, that's about right. But no, let's see. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna just go through, get some of the questions done, and then because I have a stop at 10:30 is what my wife told me to do. So she's
Well,
giving
she's
me
the
2 hours.
boss.
Yeah, she is the boss. So she's giving me 2 hours, which is really really amazing for her. Let me see. Get some questions here. Can you hear me, Jared? No, that ain't gonna work. Let's see. Scroll back up here. We do have a couple of questions. What is your favorite color trick worm this time of year?
I'm gonna go with purple.
Purple?
Purple
Marty?
red flakes.
Yeah, I think the purple and pink is what I like. Yep. That Margarita Mutilator, the Tequila Sunrise, and the Twilight from Z-Man. That's really my go-to colors when I want to throw something different.
Yeah, I purplish. The Tequila Sunrise has always been my favorite. You know, the question you just brought up on the full moon is the 16th of the month. I think that'll be a great transition up to shallow. I am taking off 4 days around the full moon because that is a big bass bite time. This time of year, April, mid-April. You did ask earlier when they start the bass start spawning here. That's the first start time they start here, around the mid month to the 20th. They'll start moving up on the beds, and I really catch a lot of bass. And I think that full moon does make a difference when the bass start to move. So I'm going to be targeting that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys about that. Like, how much do you think it's water? How much do you think it is temperature versus the moon, or is it both? Is it like when both hit, it's perfect?
I'm a big believer in the both. Right, the water temperature's got to be there, but I do think the full moon does make a difference. And I do keep track of all the big bass I catch, and all of the big bass I've caught this year, and I've caught 13 over 5 pounds. All of them have been in either full moon or a new moon cycle. And I do fish. I don't fish that much, but I do target around that, and it does make a difference, I think. But for the spawn, yes, if it get the temperature in the moon cycle right, it's money.
Yeah, I'm in that ballpark too. I do really think it matters that if you can get them both to hit. Like, I know the old fact of like the dogwoods, like when the dogwoods bloom, they start moving. But I think if you get that full moon too, I think that's when the bigger ones. Because I've heard from musky anglers and saltwater guys like how much the moon does affect it, and a bass is a predator too. So why wouldn't it affect them as well?
Yeah. Hey, Marty gave me a list about a month ago of all the different flowers that should bloom and where the hummingbirds are on when the bass are going to bite. And I'm just going to say you're full of poop, man.
Google hummingbird migration map 2022, and they actually have a map on there. And we talked about this yesterday. I'd love for you to show that.
Right now, you can actually.
Muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm going to bring that up. We can actually look at that real quick. So is it hummingbird?
Hummingbird migration map 2022.
Hummingbird migration map. Jared, can you hear us? Or is your connection bad?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's amazing.
You hear me?
Yeah. So just because your service is quite shite, could you just go give us a quick rundown of what you're doing?
Yeah. So Frederick County Bass team is down at the Colony River. We're fishing for the fourth qualifier here, which is tomorrow Sunday, and so that's the last qualifier to qualify for a state tournament, which is a 2-day tournament on Kerr, and we got about 58-degree water temperature.
Wow,
So hey, Brad Bryson, he's got the Lucky Pop Tarts and.
Try not to move your phone so much; it's killing the data. Yeah. He said 68 or 58.
I think he said 58. Yeah, that's a good temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Water.
Like that's crazy. 58 degrees. Like when is your guy? When would your tournament be, Marty, down there? Because they should be spawning when you go, right?
I hope not. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, there's that site. Just scroll down and you'll see a map. Keep going. Keep going.
Yesterday,
there you go. Now, zoom in on the East Coast. And you can actually zoom in on Virginia.
All right. So, Marty, for our listeners at
There you
home,
go.
just talk to them about what's going on here.
So what this is, and I read this real good article from this guy, and he said that when you start catching fish, pay attention to what's going on around you. And he said honestly, if you have a Japanese magnolia and it's starting to bloom, and there's a hummingbird at the same time, you better drop everything and get out on the water because that's the best pre-spawn. So everything's related. And like Shane said, he likes to keep track of what's going on around him when he catches big bass. So as you can see, this is the ruby-throated hummingbird, and move up. They fly from South America across the Gulf of Mexico and come all the way up. And I've actually been watching this, and I'm corresponding this to Shane Flint's big bass. So as you see, there's one up there in Delaware. So as these things are moving up, Shane Flint keeps catching these big bass. So I'm corresponding his big bass to this hummingbird migration map. No, he's sitting there just laughing at me. But it's something that I figured I'd like to pay attention to and see if that actually happens. And what was really kind of funny was I was watching, I have one of these Japanese magnolia trees out in my front yard that have these pink buds on and then big pink flowers. Well, it's kind of crazy because I started seeing these pink buds. Shane's catching a 7-pounder. And then all of a sudden we get this freeze. Shane stops fishing and all the buds are brown now. So I don't know if I can rely on that this year.
Are you blaming the cold weather on me, Marty?
I am. I'm blaming it on you and wiping out the buds on my magnolia tree out here. But yeah, if you look at this, it really does kind of correspond to the spawn. As these things move further north, it's showing that the weather is changing. I think it's kind of a good weather forecaster. They're not going to move north, very far if there's still going to be a lot of freezes. So our weather right now, it's pretty cold, and those little hummingbirds can't handle it too well. So as you can see this, if you look at a map with temperatures right now, the temperatures are, 15 degrees warmer right now down in that, North Carolina area than we are. So as these guys will move further north, and I think that's a good indication of the weather patterns that are coming through, the spawn and pre-spawn. So yeah, I've been kind of marking these things. I have a little notebook, a cheat sheet, and I should just call it the Shane Flint cheat sheet, that I watch what the weather's like when he's catching these big bass. And then I also look at things like this and look at what the temperatures are outside and what fronts are moving through and things like that. So, you can follow different people from different areas, but, in this area, I'm going to tell everyone, Shane's a good guy to follow because he's going to tell what the conditions are. And if you kind of jot that stuff down, even if you don't get out there this year and you're able to get out there next year, use those little hints and tricks that Shane broadcasts all the time, and it will do you good.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
I'm done
Marty.
popping up.
Yeah. Thanks, Marty. I appreciate it for all the accolades there. But the old weather cycle is always something you got to watch. But back to what you asked earlier, Thomas. The water temperature was 53 degrees yesterday on Hunting Run, so I think we're probably at least 2 weeks out. So
2 weeks out.
Yeah, see the bass start hitting the beds. And in my experience, not only here, but just fishing across the United States over my time, the big bass spawn first. So as soon as that water temperature gets around that 61 to 63 consistently for a few nights and the moon phase comes in, you'll see those bass on the bed.
No, I 100% agree with that. Nancy Boogie, I made it my goal this year to document every single bass, and that would be a good, like, do you guys want us to do a video or a live stream where we talk about the boring YouTube stuff of camera gear and how to do this? Let me know. Since I do this, the podcast, I have 2 podcasts in this YouTube channel that I do right now, so I could definitely give you guys my 2 cents on that. If that's a video you guys want, just kind of let me know, and we can do that as well. Because the nice thing about the YouTube thing, whether you're trying to do this as a living or just for fun, you get to capture the moments. And this is something big. If you are going to fish tournaments, I think you should record constantly just to be safe. Just like when you have a dash cam on your car, people are bad sometimes, and you don't want them to say like, well, you cheated. Well, if you have a camera running 24/7 in your boat, you capture everything.
Yep.
One time I'm going to leave his name out of it, but Fish and Game stopped him and wrote him a ticket, said he did something, but he had his camera running the whole time. And so it was found out that he actually did have his life preserver on, and they were trying to write him up for something like that. So just having a camera on 24/7, you never know when it not only will catch that image of a fish of a lifetime, but it might also save your butt when it comes to a penalty or something like that. So just some food for thought there, guys.
Yeah, good idea.
Well,
yeah,
hey, I looked at trying to video during a tournament, that first one, and it was so hectic for me, that very first tournament. There was no way I was going to be able to record everything. So I just didn't even think about it. I'm thinking more about when I go out personally, either myself or with my son, and that's what I'm going to video. To try and do it on tournaments, maybe it's a good idea so that no one can penalize me or something like that. But it's just crazy trying to get out on the water and getting my GoPro set up and everything. So it was very difficult for me, and that's why I did not do it on that first tournament. I'll have to see if I can figure out a way to get everything set up before we launch. So that's where I'm at there.
No, 100%. So let's see. I think we are all caught up on questions, guys. Again, I have like about five minutes left that I can be here. Again, please follow these 2 gentlemen. They're fantastic. We're definitely going to have them on again. I want to continue to do these live streams throughout the year. Let us know too. Any of us know, like, do you guys want live streams on Saturday morning? Is that what works out best for you? I know as tournament season gets started, that's probably not the smartest thing. So let us know a backup date that works really good for you. I do like live stream format way better than doing just videos. I don't mind doing videos, but I like interaction way more and being able to give you guys a content that you want. The last thing would be, besides bass, because it's only that's one fish that exists out there. What else do you guys want to see? I had a really cool podcast interview with Shallow Water Adventures that's going to be dropping here in a month. And he talked about crappie on the Upper Potomac, that he's having 100 fish crappie days on the Upper Potomac River. And he said no one fishes for crappie there. Like, no one. And I thought, like, yeah, that's pretty crazy. What are the top crappie lakes around here? Because I know in Oklahoma and down that way, like, crappie is king. But
yes,
people around here don't don't fish for them like they do over there.
Yeah. Crappie fishing is awesome. I don't want to go long, but as a kid, I can remember me and my dad filling up 2 igloo coolers, the old red and white igloo coolers, full of crappie in a day, and just coming home and filleting crappie for hours. Big, 12, 14-inch crappie. That's awesome. I didn't know that the Upper Potomac had that type of crappie in it.
Neither did I either. Yeah. And that's, again, it's where, like, it's not publicized. Like, a lot of these places, until you guys started to mention them, like Hunting Run, I didn't even know they existed. Like, they were not on my radar. And it's so crazy because when you think of Virginia, you think of the big reservoirs, and that's it. And there's so much more water. Yeah. I mean, while we're on the crappie subject real quick before we go here, how has Panoptix been helping you with crappie fishing? Have you ever targeted them specifically? I heard that's a huge game changer.
I will tell you, I haven't fished for them, but I can find them very easy. I mean, it is very easy to see that brush pile with those crappie on it. And right now actually is the best time to crappie fish because they're up shallow spawning in the sticks, but it's also the best time to bass fish. So it's kind of one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't type of scenarios. But I definitely can find the crappie really easy with Panoptix, and I plan on probably targeting them right after this. Once the bass get off the beds and is that lull and bass fishing, you can go down and catch those crappie on the 10, 12, 14, 16 foot brush piles. And boy, you can pick them out real easy on Panoptix for sure.
That's really cool. I'm excited to get my Panoptix this year.
Yeah, for me, Shane, I would tell you the best place to go and catch crappie is Nye Reservoir down here. Every time I go there bass fishing, I catch crappie every single time, and they're not small. There's some big ones in there, and I really think that's a better crappie fishery than bass fishery, and that's Nye Reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're ready to go, we'll go hit it together. We'll have some fun.
Yeah, that sounds good.
No, absolutely. And guys, thanks again for coming on. Again, just plug your stuff. Let's get Shane, plug it. Go for it.
So Shane Flynn Outdoors on YouTube. You can also follow me on Facebook at Shane Flynn Outdoors. I appreciate anybody that would like to join the channel. I do have that Big Bass Challenge going on currently in April, and I do plan on holding 2 more virtual fishing tournaments in the year, and they're all going to be free to enter. It's going to be a nice challenge, and for anybody across the United States, Virginia, Maryland, wherever you're at, can enter as long as you're a subscriber to the channel. And thanks again for having me on the channel, on the live cast. It's been awesome.
No, absolutely. And I would love, let's link up either later today or whatever. And let's talk, because I'd love to do some more of these either on your channel or Marty's channel. We could do a little synergy there, because I think this is really good, not only for bringing awareness, but being able to get good information out there and help everyone else grow. Marty, your turn.
Yeah, Rippin' Marty Lawson. That's my YouTube channel. You can find me on Facebook also. It's the best way to contact me. And I put out an invitation to Boogie Crush to get a hold of me and get down here, and I'll take them out fishing here on my boat. And I just dropped a video late last night. I actually did an interview with Derek and Daniel from Bent Rod Fishing USA. It was a blast doing a video with those guys. A lot of fun, and I have a few more interviews lined up. And for Shane, I actually did capture video of Rippin' Lips with Marty Lawson actually out on the water fishing that I'm going to drop here soon, because I haven't dropped a video of me fishing yet. So that's coming.
Well, you're gonna be on one of my videos, because I am going to put out where I caught a fish under your boat. I can't resist.
Shane is also come and interview me at my house to show off what happens when you become a tackle junkie and become a hoarder of tackle. He picks on me all the time about the amount of tackle I have, and that I'll never use it all in my lifetime. But it is what it is. I like tackle. And
that's the thing about having an addiction. It's supposed to be fun like that.
Yes.
Guys, thank you again. We're going to do this again soon. Again, thank you so much. Safe travels and tight lines.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
All right, guys, that was fantastic. That was so much fun to get them on there. Please let me know if you want to be on the show, if there's somebody else that you'd like to be on the show. We are going to try for the 17th time. Hopefully we'll get it with Jared. We got a really good crotch cam of Jared right now on there. Jared, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So guys, he is fishing right now a high school youth tournament. He's pre-fishing for it down in the Chickahominy. And so the data signal is going to be a little spotty. We're going to do the best we can. Jared, if you want to hold the camera and just not move it, that probably will be okay too. Or if you want to stay like that, that's fine. Just give us the rundown.
So yeah, we're, like I say, pre-fishing for a tournament tomorrow and Sunday. I'm guessing there could be anywhere between 50, an average of 50, give or take, boats competing in the high school. Frederick County, we have 12 total teams. 8 of those are senior division, which are high school 9 through 12, and then 4 teams represent elementary, middle school. And so it's the last qualifier of the year. They'll qualify for a state tournament, which happens down at Kerr later on. So, yeah, beautiful fishery down here at Chickahominy.
So then, for this tournament, do you have them figured out? Have you caught a single fish? Are you crying?
Yeah,
Are you happy?
we had a handful. Yeah, we had a handful yesterday, and today we have 3 so far. Like a 2.5 and a couple 2-pounders. So we are starting to figure out some things. It's kind of a 58-degree water temperature that I always feel, and I'm not an expert by any means, but that transition, they're not up yet. I mean, some may be up, pushing up. And of course, all the fish are all going to be doing, that spawn thing at different times. So it's kind of can be a tricky time because they're not all up. And so, but they're definitely moving up, pushing up. So, kind of trying to fish flats. Yesterday we had 25 mile an hour winds. And so, that ruled out a lot of water. We tried to just stay in a creek, and had a little bit of luck, success there. But yeah, just trying to put the puzzle pieces together to hopefully have some success tomorrow.
How with the high school tournament, are you guys limited on where you're allowed to run, or do you have the same free range that the big guys would, the pros?
As long as the weather's good, have the free reign. But if you do get high winds, I know like Smith Mountain, of course, when we were at Berkeley Springs there, they did cancel that, which they did a lot of tournaments because of the high winds and the cold weather. But typically, if the weather is good, we're good to go. Sometimes they'll put certain bridges off limits, like on the James River. But like I say, a lot of times it's dictated by weather. If the weather's good, they'll let you run pretty much anywhere.
Okay. So what kind of size have you guys been catching?
For us, I would say that 2.5 pounder was the biggest so far. We know, we've got some kids that have had 4.5, 5 pounders in the practice. So the numbers I don't think have been great, but there's definitely size potential in this river system.
Oh yeah, 100%. Now I do want to try, if we can, I don't know if the data will allow, if you want to swing the camera and just, if the kids would like to, just have them state their names and what they're catching them on right now. Or if they want to keep it a secret, just their vibe on the tournament.
Yeah, Bryson did a good job yesterday. I don't know. See yourself on there, Bryson?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me who you are.
Bryson Mosley.
And did you get on him yesterday?
Ned Riggs.
Well, if you fish with Jared, yeah, that's all I think he throws is the Ned rig and a tube. So you're in the right boat for that.
Yeah, Bryson's a good stick. He catches a lot of trout and bass. Where do you primarily fish, Bryson? Wilkins. And Bryson, tell us real quick tell us about this camp that's coming up. Bryson and his dad are heading up this camp. So tell us a little bit about it.
No.
Yeah, you didn't. So basically, Bryson's idea, and his dad, they've met with Frederick County Parks and Rec, and they're going to be doing a summer camp. What is it? 3 days, I think.
4
days. And it's going to be at which 2 parks?
Shrando and Clearbrook.
Shrando and Clearbrook Parks.
Oh, cool.
You can be looking for information in the Frederick County Parks and Rec guide. I think you said there's going to be a morning and afternoon session.
Mm-hmm.
And so more information coming to be kind of the first annual for these guys, but it's pretty cool that Bryson came up with this idea to offer a camp for kids to come out and fish and learn about fishing. And so I think that's really awesome. So just be looking. Do we know the dates? July 5 through 8.
July 5 through 8. Okay.
Yep. And we may want to link that I don't know if it's out yet on their publication, but so
yeah. And what we'll do, guys, is all this information will be sent to me and we'll post it definitely to make sure it's available for everybody. Now, do you have somebody else in the boat?
Well, so what happens sometimes? Yeah, no, it's his dad. His dad is pre-fishing with us today.
Okay.
And then basically what happens sometimes with these tournaments, these kids have different things going on. So whether it's, different athletic events. So the 4 qualifiers, they try to make as many as they can, but sometimes that's not possible. And then we've also had times where, have a family emergency in the family, a death maybe, and kids can't make it. So they are able to, fish by themselves if those circumstances arise. So now, typically there would be 2 on a boat.
Gotcha. So now do you get to fish with the same individuals in the tournament, or is it who you pre-fish with is not necessarily who you draw in the tournament? How does that all work? Do you get to pick your boat captain, or is it a draw?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, basically we tell folks that when they join this team or this club, Bass Nation, High School Bass Nation, you need to have a partner and you need to have a boat. And so, but if you don't have a partner, we try to find you a partner. And if you don't have a boat, your dad doesn't have a boat, we can pair you up with a boat captain. So we have actually several, I know at least four of us that don't have, kids fishing, but they bring their boats down and put 2 kids on it and let them fish. So, Rick Nugent, Corey Carter, myself, Jeff Mears, he's got a son in it, but Jared Kirby's taken those 2 boys out, so he's taken 2 of our other ones out. And so, so it's a pretty cool opportunity because, not everybody has a boat. And like I say, if we can pair you up with a partner, we do that. So it's a pretty good deal. But as far as to answer your question specifically, pretty much we try to keep the boat captains consistent. But if you come down, like we do have 2 kids, a team fishing separately, one with his dad, and then the other one on the team, he's fishing with their actual boat captain. So they're covering more water as they try to figure out, put that pattern together for tomorrow's tournament.
Good stuff, sir. Good stuff as always. And so it's a 1-day event starting tomorrow, 58-degree water. What do you think the weights are going to be?
Wow. Chickahominy, I mean, it could be, I'm going to take a guess and say 18 or 19 pounds to win it, but it could be 20 plus. But my guess right now, if I had to guess, I would say 19 pounds to win it tomorrow.
Dang. And is it just the winner that advances? How does that work?
Oh, so of the 4 qualifiers, typically what they'll do is top 5 from each qualifier will advance for the state tournament. Now, if any individual finishes in the top 5, let's say in the first qualifier, and they finish again in the top 5 in the second qualifier, they don't take that same person. They'll actually go down to number 6 or 7 on through. And then that's for the senior division. But they'll also, the juniors this year, if they catch 3 fish in a qualifier, they'll qualify for the state tournament.
Oh, wow.
And then for the state tournament, they'll take, last year they took the winner of the state tournament, 2-day tournament, went to nationals, Chickamauga. And then they also took the number 1 in points. So they will also keep points throughout the season. And number 1 in points would have a bid to the national tournament. And Frederick County's Jerry Bradford did that last year. And you can see that podcast, one of the first podcasts we did.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. And Jared, your connection is fantastic now. I don't know what you did, but it looks amazing. And then, hopefully maybe we can have one of the winners on, or one of the people that finished well in the tournament. If they want to come on the show, that would be awesome too. But good luck to you. And the weather looks great. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Thomas. Appreciate the support.
Yep. Good luck. So guys, that is the high school fishing tournament right now on the Chickahominy River. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. This was a really fun live stream. I really, really enjoyed this one a lot. Please, again, let me know in the comment section below what videos you'd like me to do next, what guests you'd like me to have on. And I'll let you know about our next live stream going forward. We are going to have a poll about that, about when live streams are the best for you guys. But otherwise, this has been fun. It's been Thomas Ahrens with Fishing the DMV, and I'll see all you beautiful people next time. See you later. But I do have, actually, I had one. Did I miss any questions before I log off here? Are you drinking a beer? No, I'm not drinking a beer. It's Liquid Death sparkling water. Why does everyone say that I'm drinking alcohol at 10 o'clock in the morning? No, this is Liquid Death bubbling water. It is not alcohol. But thank you, I guess. I love Boogie Fish tips. Okay, cool. Let's see. Unless you can catch fishing fast on jerkbait, not. And any questions, guys? I'm just going through all the questions one more time. Thank you all so much. Boogie, we're definitely gonna do some bluegill and crappie videos because a lot of people want them. Let's see. Thank you so much. Okay, cool. I think we're up to date on the questions. So for the ones that are just tuning in, if you didn't know, we had Shane Flint and Marty Lawson. They're two small YouTube content creators in the Richmond/Fredericksburg area of Virginia, talking about just their tips and tricks, a little bit about them. I'm trying to get as many small content creators on this live stream as possible, just talking about different things fishing wise. Then we also talked about our favorite baits for April this time of year, and then we had Jared Mount on, and he talked about on the water, the high school tournament that's going on tomorrow on the Chickahominy River. So it's been a crazy live stream. So if you guys want to be on the live stream, if you want to have your channel featured, or just want to talk shop with me, please reach out to me. Message me on Facebook, Instagram, or at Aaron's Bassing. That's at aaronsbassing@gmail.com. Reach out to me there, and you can be on the show next time. We're going to answer a few questions, and then I think we're going to be done for the day. So if anyone has any more questions, please speak up now. I don't know if we're going to have a live stream next week. It depends if you guys want one next week. So let me know in the comments below if you want a live stream next week, or we might take a week off. I might go fish a tournament. We don't know yet. So again, if you want a live stream next week, please let me know. James H. launching at White's Ferry. Wish me luck. Yeah, good luck, James H. I made it to the goal this year. Document. Yep. We did that one. Boogie asks, yes, that would be great video. I've always filmed everything. I've been into skateboarding, fishing, etc. I love video. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm going to put a poll up on my YouTube channel about our next live stream, our topics and things of that ilk, what you guys like. Let me know kind of what you guys want me to do. We will do a camera one in the future, talking about my setup and how I get all my footage. Let's see if there's any more questions before we log off here. Colorado blades. Shane Flint loves Colorado blades, or really explains everything. Yeah, Colorado blades are extremely good. Really good vibration. It does create more lift on the bait, so you have to really keep that in mind. Floating worm. Floating worm is huge. I think that's everything. Anyone else have any more questions? I think we got them all. Going once, going twice. All right, good deal. All right, until next time, guys, we'll see you again on Fishing the DMV. Bye.
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.